it going, folks? Welcome to another fun at-home table read. Tonight we are tackling honestly one of the most intriguing films from the blacklist over the last decade. I kid you not, folks. This script was written in 2008, and it still has yet to be made, and that is the Jim Henson biopic, The Muppet Man, written by Christopher Weeks. We're going to get right into this thing because I can't wait to see what this script is going to be, so let's start with our intros.
I'm Angie, and I'm doing action description.
I'm Logan. I'm going to try Jim tonight.
I'm Bridget. I'll be playing Frank Oz.
Hello, my name is Mary, and I will be playing Jane Henson.
I'm Eric. I'm playing Richard Hunt.
Hi, I'm Anne, and I will be Kevin Clash.
I'm Curtis. I'll be playing Jerry Jewell.
I'm Karina. I'll be playing Betty Hudson.
All right. Well, Angie, take us away.
The Muppet Man by Christopher Weeks. Interior, decrepit hotel room, New York, night. Kermit the Frog, 20 years older than we've ever seen him before, wakes from a drunken nightmare. He stares, bloodshot, at a whiskey bottle on his bedside, a 3-day growth giving his felt chin a strongly pronounced 6 o'clock shadow. He struggles out of bed, hobbling to his window, scratching his green butt. Kermit stares down into the street. New York looks a lot like New York, a gritty, grimy, metro-style hot pot of Muppets from all walks of life. Some drunks, some homeless, some rich, some poor, some a mix and a match of everything. A giant statue of Liberty Bell, a cow, hangs off from the Havoc River. Its beacon, a milk bucket, pulses an orange glow across the perpetually dirty city, mesmerizing Kermit.
Hi-ho, Kermit the Frog here.
Kermit stares at a wedding invite in his dresser. Cordially invite you to the wedding of Miss Piggy and Link Hogthrob. A photo of Miss Piggy and Link Hogthrob atop a carriage in Central Park beams back at him. Kermit scrunches the invite up and pours himself another drink. Interior bedroom, Jim Henson's New York home, 1990, morning. Jim Henson, 53, a tall, lanky, and gentle soul, slowly opens his eyes, much like Kermit in the scene above. He grabs an aspirin from the bedside. Jim pulls himself from bed, dressed elegantly as ever in his pinstripe pajamas. He glares out the window. At Upper Manhattan, there's street after street of the most expensive townhouses the city can buy, no trash or homeless in sight. Jim moves his attention to a photo of his family on the dresser, taken some years back. Jane, Henson, and the kids, Brian, Lisa, Cheryl, John, and Heather, look back. Interior living room, Jim Henson's New York home, 1990 morning. Jim sits at an empty wooden table eating toast with English tea. He stares at the walls. A Muppet Show promo is playing on TV, highlighting the upcoming 20th anniversary of Sesame Street. It's the classic Mana sketch.
Do 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 do.
We see the entire house is filled to the brim with Henson memorabilia, from the Muppets to Sesame Street to Fraggle Rock and the Labyrinth. There's a stained glass window by the door that shows Bert and Ernie holding each other tightly. Underneath is a stylized Jim Henson and Frank Oz holding them up with their arms. Jim mopes across the room, his lanky legs stretching out like stilts. Interior bathroom, Jim Henson's New York home, 1990 morning. Jim stands under the shower, warming his Kermit the Frog voice for a taping later today. Interior bathroom, decrepit hotel, New York, morning. Kermit stands under the shower, hungover. He leans against the tiles, trying to ignore the cakes of soap singing to him.
Do 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 do.
Mana mana.
Do 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 do.
Mana mana.
Do 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 do.
Interior, decrepit hotel, New York, morning. Kermit, wife beater singlet on, stares at his unshaven face in a reflection. Now a broken frog, he's hardly a shadow of his former self. Interior bedroom, Jim Henson's New York home, 1990 morning. Jim combs his hair, just out of the shower. He looks into the mirror, just like Kermit. Interior, decrepit hotel, New York, morning. Kermit throws back another whiskey. A swarm of rats in the corner of the hotel room sing back.
Do 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 do.
Kermit rips open his closet, revealing a tired, old, moth-ridden tux hanging on a wire hanger. Interior, yellow crab, streets, New York, morning. A giant, hollowed-out crab, of course, shaped like a cab, drives Kermit, now dressed smartly in his cheap tux, through the booze-ridden streets of New York. The cash cows, businessmen types, all sing back to him as they scurry on their way back to work. Interior cab, New York, 1990, morning. Jim Henson is being driven along by busy Manhattan streets to his production office. He's still practicing voices. The cab driver can't help himself, suddenly joining into the familiar tune. Jim gets embarrassed.
Oh, sorry, I was just warming my voice.
Buddy, I love that song.
Interior church, New York, day. Kermit, quite worked up, pounds across the pavement, grasping tightly to Piggy's scrunched wedding invitation. Across the street, Kermit stares at the large congregation of Muppets. All the regulars are there. Fozzie, Gonzo, Scooter, Sweetums, Crazy Harry, and Animal, to name the obvious, although suspiciously no Rowlf. They all look so much older than we've ever seen them before. Fozzie, now grossly obese, gets around on a moving chair. Gonzo has a large hearing trumpet. Scooter has entered full-blown midlife crisis wearing leather with piercings. And Animal has gone bald and gray. Kermit suddenly coughs and splutters something revolting onto the sidewalk. The Muppets all turn, now finally noticing him. A group of chickens dressed as altar boys pass Kermit on their way to the church. Looks again at the invitation. He glares at the smug face on Link Hogthrob's photo, his arm draped across Miss Piggy so casually. The Muppets can't help themselves. They just have to join in.
Do 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 do. Do 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 do.
Suddenly, everyone turns. A stretched limo arrives, the sound of 100 monsters holding their breath, as Miss Piggy steps out in her wedding dress. Kermit can't stand seeing her. So beautiful. A team of Muppet-shaped instruments race over to Miss Piggy, playing a big brass finish to the song. Long pause. Fozzie squints, trying to make out the grizzled green frog standing across the road.
Kermit? Are you all right?
Kermit thinks long and hard about how he'll answer that. Interior meeting room, Henson Company, New York, 1990, day. Jim Henson stares at a sketch on his notepad.
Jim?
He's drawn Kermit holding a bunch of roses forlornly.
Jim, you okay?
Jim looks up and sees the Henson Company sitting around a table, all eyes glued on him. There's Jerry Jewell, Richard Hunt, Jerry Nelson, Carol Spinney, Kevin Clash, Dave Goltz, David Lazar, Fozzaz, Kathy Mullen, Carolee Wilcox, and Steve Whitmore. Frank Oz, 46, a bald man with glasses and a deep, throaty voice, in another life the voice of Miss Piggy and Fozzie, and also Jim's closest friend, examines Jim from across the...
What part were we at?
We're trying to get going on the redraft.
Redraft?
Muppet High? You happy with it? because I've still got a few problems with the middle.
Well, you're the best person to know, Frank. I'm not sure.
About what?
About the middle part.
Divided table. The entire table stares at him, everyone now concerned.
Excuse me a moment, guys. I think I need a lemon tea or something. Coming down with something.
Jerry Jewell, 52, a gray-haired man who appears more mad scientist than lead writer for the Muppets, smiles at Jim from under his glasses.
Pierre Henson, everybody. The only CEO in New York who would ask the little people if it's okay for him to take a 5-minute break.
Be quiet, Jerry.
Anyone remember the last time Jim got sick?
Richard Hunt, 39, a handsome Yorker-style man who looks a little like Billy Joel's long-lost brother, quickly jumps in.
Never seen it.
30 years, not one day off. I'd be phoning this meeting from my bed if I had your money, Jim.
You got more money than me, Jerry. Besides, someone's got to watch over the madhouse.
The room laughs, the tension quelled. Jim stands from the table, towering over them all.
Don't go ripping the walls off while I'm gone, okay? Save it for when I get back.
More laughter and familiarity. It's clearly a close-knit group. Interior bathroom, Henson Company, New York, 1990, day. Jim steps into the mirror, poking his tongue out. It's strawberry red. He feels his throat, trying to ease the tickle. Suddenly, behind his reflection, Elmo, the lovable red monster from Sesame Street, waddles in.
Jim, are you okay?
Jim turns a little alarmed. Kevin Clash, 30, is standing where Elmo was. Kevin looks about half his age, his infectious smile beaming out.
Man, you're off our planet today.
It's a little edge on my quartz. Never happened before.
Kevin, ever casual, starts washing his hands.
Getting a cold?
It's all the back and forth to LA. Air conditioning's no good for me.
You worried about Arsenio?
I'll try salt gargle.
Pineapple juice?
Pineapple juice. I haven't tried that.
Interior private jet day. Jim Henson reclines on a plush leather seat, a pile of scripts and design doodles stacked high on his tray. He stares across at Kevin Clash, asleep. A Clifford Muppet rests in his lap. Jim pulls out his wallet and stares at an old sepia photograph of his paternal grandmother, 57, known simply as Dear, taken around 1940. She's standing next to a young 4-year-old boy in a safari suit. James Murray Henson, Jim's birth name. Suddenly, a Muppet walks down the aisle carrying a tray of lemonade. It's an old Dear grandmother figure done in the likeness of Dear.
James, are you thirsty, dear? You want some lemonade?
Jim Henson stares at this Muppet incarnation of his grandmother, perplexed.
You've been staring at that contraption for far too long. You've got square eyes.
Suddenly, looking behind Jim, we find ourselves in his memories. Interior living room, Henson House, Washington, 1950, evening. Jim Henson's childhood home, circa 1950. A 14-year-old Jim sitting inches away from an early model black and white TV, enthralled in Kukula, Fran, and Ollie. He's already very tall, handsome young man. He develops young, and by turn, quite awkwardly. Dressed in braces with his hair pomaded back, young Jim hardly blinks, he's so glued to the show. His maternal grandmother, Dear, 60, holds out a tray of lemonade, just like her Muppet counterpart had.
You'll get scared eyes, Jimmy.
You don't get square eyes from watching TV, Gran.
You don't know that.
If I get it, everyone will get it. The whole world watches TV now.
Dear chuckles at the wild imagination of her grandson.
Oh, Jimmy.
She turns off the TV.
This box sure ain't gonna help you get anywhere in life. Go outside for a while, huh? For your grandma.
Dear waddles off to the kitchen. Sneakily, young Jim waits till the coast is clear, then turns Kula, Fran, and Ollie back on. We see on his vintage TV a crude Punch and Judy style show. Hand puppets of Kula and Ollie bang on a xylophone, the manic energy between them hinting at the lunacy that would become the Muppet Show in years to come. Interior kitchen table, Henson House, Washington, 1950, night. Young Jim sits at a lime green table cutting into the back of a cereal box. He smirks, excited about the mischief he's about to get up to. He holds one of his cutouts to his eye. We see Jim cut out the perfect square. Interior hallway, Henson House, Washington, 1950, night. It's late. The lights are off. Young Jim sneaks across the hallway wearing goofy cardboard cutouts across his eyes, shaped to resemble the square eyes. It's crudely attached with Scotch tape, but clearly inspired nonetheless. He chuckles to himself as he lumbers past the various doors and cupboards in the house. His lanky legs wobble like a baby giraffe, only just learning to walk. He creaks open a door. Inside, Paul Henson Jr., 18, Jim's older brother, is studying at his desk. Paul stares at the cardboard eyes, rather unimpressed.
James, what are you doing? You'll wake everyone up.
Square eyes, Paul. Too much TV.
Paul Jr. gives a little chuckle.
Here's a spaz. Come here.
Young Jim walks over. Paul Jr. takes off his glasses. He starts to color in with the Scotch tape with a marker.
You gotta hide the tape or no one will buy it. Just dork. You gotta start acting your age, huh?
The magician never reveals his secret.
Interior parents' room, Henson House, Washington, 1950, night. Paul Jr. and young Jim creep into the icy room full of childish glee. They're both wearing square eyes now. Their mother, Betty Henson, 36, is reading a self-help book in bed. Lying next to her is their father, Paul Henson Sr., 40. He's fallen asleep above the covers, still dressed in his suit from work.
Psst, Mom. Too much TV.
Young Jim and Paul Jr. crack themselves up.
Both of you stop it. You'll wake up your father.
Square eyes. Get it?
Betty finally chuckles. She couldn't hide it forever.
You're both as bad as each other. Now go back to bed.
Young Jim and Paul Jr. shuffle out of the room. Interior Grandma's room, Henson House, Washington, 1950, night. Jim and Paul Jr. bumble into their grandmother's room wearing handmade square eyes still. Dear is lying in bed, unsuccessfully trying to sleep.
Grandma, look. You were right. Too much TV.
Dear clicks on her bedside lamp and sees the two boys. She bursts out laughing.
Would you look at that? Square eyes.
Suddenly, Paul Sr. screams down the hall.
Hey! I'm trying to sleep down here!
It would appear that we've woken the dragon.
Uh-oh.
And welcome to Los Angeles!
Young Jim stares at Dear, confused. What did he say?
Please take care. I'm disembarking from the jet.
Interior private jet, LA Airport, 1990, day. Jim Henson has dozed off at his seat. The Clifford Muppet, a Jamaican musician recently added to the Muppet Show, is thrust into Jim's face by Kevin Clash.
Yeah, man. We's arrived in Los Angeles.
Jim wakes in fright. Kevin smiles at him.
I cannot believe you slept through that landing. Ho.
Interior floor, Arsenio Hall show, LA, 1990, day. Arsenio Hall, 27, dressed in a classic 90s purple padded suit, grins down the lens. We're at a taping of his show.
Yeah, start with a piece of green cloth and a couple of ping pong balls. My guest created a dynasty that includes Sesame Street, Fraggle Rock, and all my all-time favorite, the Muppets. Please help me welcome Jim Henson. Woo, 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 woo.
Jim Henson, checkered sweater on, strides onto a stage rather nervously. Arsenio helps guide him down to the couches.
What, I hear you got a party going on, 20 years of Sesame Street, is that true?
Well, something like that, yeah.
20 years, I can't believe that. It's been going that long?
Well, it's hard for us to believe, too. We've been all over the world recently with Big Bird and Elmo doing some filming, sort of having our brand of fun for a special we made that airs on Sunday.
Oh, so that's the clip we have. Let's see that.
Oh, yeah.
Cut to tape. We see Ernie from Sesame Street in the bath. He's covered in suds, holding a rubber duck in the air for us to see.
Rubber ducky, you're the one. You make bath time lots of fun. Rubber ducky, I'm awfully fond of you.
Interior floor, Arsenio Hall show, LA, 1990, day. Arsenio is watching the rubber ducky clip on a monitor. Jim Henson lifts the Kermit puppet onto his arm and prepares for the second half of his interview. Arsenio smiles, talking under his breath so the audience isn't interrupted.
I grew up with this stuff, you know. I used to sing Rubber Ducky with my mom.
Oh, that's wonderful.
The clip finishes and Arsenio springs straight back into interview mode. The audience claps enthusiastically. Kermit, operated by Jim, starts nodding in appreciation.
Oh, we're joined by Kermit the Frog.
How are you? Great to see you, Arsenio.
Good to have you back. Did you meet Connie backstage?
Well, no, I didn't. No, I didn't know. I don't know what happened. You know what? They kept me in a bag. That's the truth. It's the truth. They keep me in a bag. They don't let me out, you know?
The audience, a little thrown by the odd-sounding Kermit, forces Jim to break his performance.
Excuse me. Frog in my throat.
Jim sips a glass of water. The audience lets out a little chuckle. Interior backstage, Arsenio Hall show, LA, 1990, day. Kevin Clash, his Clifford Muppet ready to go, watches Jim's interview from the wings. He turns to a production manager, concerned.
You got pineapple juice around?
Interior floor, Arsenio Hall show, LA, 1990, day. Jim is clearly nervous, but he continues with the interview anyway. Arsenio tries to cover.
How's that your throat going there, Kermit? You better now?
Yeah, much
Ever
better,
the professional, yes. Jim launches back into character.
Yeah, much better, yes. Thank you, Arsenio. I ate a few bad flies for lunch. I think, maybe Piggy hit me a few many times in the, the old froggy mouth, you know?
The audience laughs. Everyone is relaxing again.
It's interesting you say that because you have a totally different tone than you had the last time you were on here. I've heard there been problems between you and Miss Piggy. Is that true?
You know.
Suddenly, Miss Piggy bounds out from the audience, heading straight for Kermit. She's dressed like Sandra Dee, covered in cashmere and silk scarves.
Excuse me? You taking any notes on this?
Am I?
Did you take notes?
Jim suddenly drops Kermit from his arm, perplexed at what's happening.
I don't understand what you're asking me.
Interior puppet class, University of Maryland, 1954, day. We've entered some kind of memory again. Jim's youth, college in the fall, 1954. Teen Jim, now 18, sits very attentively at the back of his class with his books. Tall and skinny, his giant features have outgrown his head. He protrudes from the desk. An attractive yet goofy young woman, Jane Neville, 20, leans across to him. She whispers very politely so Professor James, their puppet teacher, can't hear.
Notes, pen, paper. I've got no idea what this guy is on about.
Who?
Teen Jane smiles. Jim's naivete is pure gold.
That strange guy in the brown suit talking slow down in the front. Did you take notes?
Jim looks. She means Professor James. He gives a polite giggle.
Oh, I see. I don't have any notes.
This guy could put coffee to sleep, couldn't he?
They both crack up. The professor peers over from his wooden puppets, not impressed.
Am I disturbing you at the back there?
Nope. Sorry.
Are you sure?
Actually.
Teen Jane stands up and holds her homemade puppet in the air. She pretends to talk through it.
Could you please slow down a little? I'm having trouble
Mr. James, trying to remain professional, replies quite calmly with his own wooden puppet.
I'll try.
Interior living room, Henson House, Washington, 1954, night. Teen Jim sits watching Life with Snarky Parker on the family television. Paul Sr. smokes a pipe on the sofa. He's reading the paper, trying to ignore the TV, the very model of a 1950s nuclear patriarch. He puts his Washington Post down, ready to make a fresh declaration.
Jim, I think it's time you got yourself a nice girl like Paul has. You're at college now. You should be out there, living a little.
A girl?
Paul goes back to the paper, his declaration completed.
Steve from the office has a daughter your age. We're looking for a nice boy. I told him you'd take her out next Saturday.
I don't need you to do that.
I think I do, Jim.
Interior quadrangle, University of Maryland, 1954, day. Teen Jim stands by a coffee house looking out across the quadrangle. Various 50s-style college students eat their lunch. They all have a distinctive boho style to them, quite a marked difference from the starched atmosphere of his neighborhood back home. Jim is taken by Jane Neville, the young woman from his class. Dressed in black with a beret, she's sketching something under the tree. Nervously, Jim marches over toward her. He gulps like Kermit.
It's a lovely day today, isn't it?
Oh, hey, sorry. I was a million miles away. What were you saying?
Oh, yeah.
Jim goes to walk away, thinking better of it. He bravely marches straight back to Jane.
Hey, what are you doing this weekend?
Suddenly, Charlie Masterson, 22, a fellow student, also dressed in black with a beret, walks over to them.
Hey, baby.
Teen Jane smiles at him. They quickly kiss hello.
Oh, hey there, sweetie.
Who's that guy?
You know what? I don't actually know. We're in James Puppetry 101 together, but I never caught his name. I feel terrible.
It's Jim Henson.
Hello there, Jim. I'm Jane. And this is my fiance, Charlie.
Hey there, Jim. How's it going? Yeah?
They shake hands.
Jim, what were you saying before?
Nothing. I just I like your drawing. I'm gonna get going to class, so I'll see you around.
Like an orange.
Jim tries to laugh, but his nerves have gotten the better of him.
Nice meeting you, Chuck.
Jim bounds across the quadrangle, quick as he can. Interior front door, Henson House, Washington, 1954, night. The doorbell rings. Betty Henson walks over and opens the front door, revealing Jenny Summers, 18, a peachy blonde girl from Jim's high school.
Hello, Mrs. Henson. I'm here for Jim.
Of course, dear. Come on in. Jim!
Interior Jim's room, Henson House, Washington, 1954, night. Teen Jim sits at the end of his bed, his head in his hands. He really doesn't want to do this.
Jim! Jenny's here!
Interior dining room, Henson House, Washington, 1954, night. A family dinner. Betty carves a roast chicken as Paul Sr. and Paul Jr. look over at a tax form on the table. His other 4 brothers and sisters are scattered around the table. They're all dressed quite formally. Quite oppositional to Teen Jim in a checkered shirt and jeans. He sits with a nervous Jenny Summers.
So where are you kids going to go tonight?
Oh, was thinking about maybe catching the new horror flick down on Woodmont Avenue.
What film?
Creature from the Black Lagoon.
You're not into that nonsense too, are you, Jenny?
I was hoping to see 7 Brides for 7 Brothers, actually, since you asked.
Oh, really?
The Henson kids give a little mocking laugh.
You don't have 6 sisters, do you?
Shut up, Paul.
Manners, the both of you. We have a guest.
Jim, I don't understand your obsession with these childish movies. Don't drag poor girl down to film she doesn't want to see.
I like those sorts of movies. There's an art to it.
You showing her the rat? Where's the art in your rat?
Paul Jr.'s face grows with glee.
Get out the rat, Paul.
Interior living room, Henson House, Washington, 1954, night. The Henson family sit around the fireplace watching Teen Jim and Paul Jr. perform with homemade wooden puppets. Jim operates an arrogant rodent named Pierre, the French rat, and Paul is performing a wimpy cowboy called Shortthorn. Jenny watches, quite confused.
Good evening to you all. My name is Pierre the French rat, or as you say in my country, the Rat Francois.
And I am our famous cowboy in the West, Shorthorn McDraw.
The family laughs. Even Jenny cracks a smile. Teen Jim presses play on the record player. A 50s version of Frere Jacques starts to play. Pierre, the French rat, and Shortthorn dance and mouth along to it. The Hensons find themselves in stitches. Interior Jim's car, Washington, 1954, night. Teen Jim drives Jenny along the tranquil streets of 1950s Washington.
So, Jimmy, you like puppets?
Oh, I guess so.
I've never met anyone who liked puppets before.
Jim just looks at her, disappointed.
Me too.
Interior Woodmont Cinema, Washington, 1954, night. Teen Jim and Jenny sit amongst the other rambunctious 50s teenagers in a packed cinema. Creature from the Black Lagoon plays on the screen. Jenny looks bored. Extremely bored. She's the preppiest girl for miles. She drapes her pink sweater around her shoulders, making her stand out all the more. A piece of popcorn flies into her hair.
Jim, can we go?
You don't see the monster?
The noise is so loud in here. I can't hear the film over all the screaming, and I don't like these sorts of movies, Jim. I was too shy to tell you.
We see what Jim's actually been looking at. A few rows in front of him, Jane Neville is sitting with her fiancé, Charlie, and cuddled together.
You won't be long now.
Please, Jim.
Jim stumbles over himself.
You know what'll really get him going?
Jim sticks his long arm into the air, hitting the projector beam. On screen, the lagoon monster appears, along with the silhouette of an arm reaching up and picking the creature's nose. The cinema erupts into laughter.
Oh my God.
Jane and Charlie turn around to see Jim.
Jim? What are you doing here?
Jane! Hi!
Exterior Boardwalk, Maryland, Washington, 1954, night. Teen Jim and Jane walk together, with Charlie and Jenny trailing along behind them. A carnival twinkles manically in the background. Jane and Jenny lick ice cream cones while Jim nurses a bright pink packet of fairy floss. Charlie cracks open his third beer.
I heard the guy who played the creature had to hold his breath for 4 minutes to stop the bubbles coming out.
Why?
Because the sea monster is meant to breathe through his gills, you see. So if you saw bubbles, you might know it was a guy in a suit.
Gee, that's clever.
Jimmy, what was that?
Teen Jim turns to Jenny, not interested in including her in this exclusive puppet conversation.
I was just talking about some college stuff.
Jenny turns to Charlie, a little flustered.
Jimmy's into puppets.
Uh-huh. So's Jane.
Interior Jim's car, Jenny's yard, Washington, 1954, night. Jim's car pulls up outside a white picket fence. It's Jenny's parents' house. They've been sitting in silence virtually the entire trip. Jim turns the engine off and waits. Jenny is reduced to tears.
Do you hate me, Jimmy?
No, of course not.
I guess if you hate
don't. You're wrong about that. Please don't cry.
You haven't even asked me what I do nowadays. I feel like everything about you, and you don't even care to know anything about me.
Jim hands her a handkerchief.
So, what do you do?
I'm studying nursing.
They look at each other. This conversation isn't going to go anywhere. Jenny wipes her eyes.
Well, good night, Jim. Thank you for the movie.
Good night.
Interior hallway, Henson House, Washington, 1954, night. Teen Jim mopes at the door, sneaking up the hallway. As he passes Paul Jr.'s room, he catches his brother playing with Pierre, the French rat, at his desk. Paul Jr. is trying to attach a silly wig to its head.
Hey, what are you doing to my rat?
Dad got a call from some guy at WRC TV. Someone said the afternoon show we did work experience with last year.
What they did?
You want to see us tomorrow? See what we can come up with.
Teen Jim stares at him blankly.
What can we come up with, Jimmy?
Interior Rumson office, WRC TV, Washington, 1954, day. Teen Jim Henson and Paul Jr. sit in a very posh office of Max Rumson, 45, head programmer for WRC TV in Washington. A bald man with thick black glasses, he takes his television very seriously. Max stares at his watch, impatient already.
All right, kids, you got 2 minutes. Show me what you got.
Jim, nervous, signals for Paul Jr. to start. He puts Pierre the French rat on his hand. Paul, following Jim's lead, puts Longhorn on.
This is an idea we had for a little scene. Maybe it's funny, maybe it's not.
You've got my attention so far, Howdy. Next word might blow it, though.
No need to hear it twice. Jim turns on the record player. The Banana Boat song by Stan Freberg starts to play. Jim and Paul Jr. suddenly spring into performance. Pierre the rat races towards Max Rumson's desk, mouthing to the song as if it were singing.
Day-o, day-o, daylight come and me one go home. Day, he said that.
Suddenly, Longhorn bounces towards Pierre, very grumpy.
Oh man, I'm gonna have to ask you not to shout like that.
Well,
it's like right here in my ear, man.
It goes with the song.
Yeah, but don't holler in my ear, man.
Well, it's authentic calypso.
Yeah, but don't stand next to me, man.
Well, the shout goes with the bongo drum.
Not my bongo drums, man. I mean, move away there.
Well, I don't see why.
No. Stand over next to the guitar, man.
Pierre points to Max.
He sent me over here.
Yeah, well, then sing soft, man. I mean, like, wow.
Okay. Day!
So loud, man. That's better.
Me said that, me said that, me said that, me said that, me said that. Oh, daylight come and me want go home.
Yeah, man.
Paul Jr. quickly turns off the record player. Jim and his brother quickly scurry back to their chairs, nervous. Max doesn't give away a thing.
Maybe it's not that funny.
How much you know about TV, kid?
Not much, sir.
Good. That's the way I like them. Unspoilt.
Exterior quadrangle, University of Maryland, 1954, day. Teen Jane is doing doodling away in her notebook, under the tree again, when Pierre the French rat suddenly pokes his head out from behind the trunk.
Excusez-moi, madame. I wonder, what are you up to this afternoon?
She attempts a serious face.
Well, I'm not really sure. Why would you ask, Mr. Rat?
Aha! Well, I am filming a new show today for a TV network, if you believe that, and one of my puppeteering friends dropped out at the last moment.
Is that right?
That is right! And I have heard it said that you are quite handy with your hand up the backsides, no?
No.
Teen Jim, a cheeky smile across his face, peers out from behind the tree.
You free for a couple hours today?
Interior Soundstage, WRC-TV, Washington, 1954 day. We're on the set for Jim's first day of shooting, Sam and Friends. We see a mock-up poster design for the show. It sits on an easel with a note, crew, this way. Teen Jim, dressed yet again in a checkered shirt, waddles across the stage to the studio floor. He passes the WRC TV crew as he goes. They're all a good 3 decades older than him. Arriving on the set, literally a studio camera pointed at a cardboard backdrop, Jim finds Jane and Paul Jr. waiting for him. They're practicing with some of their early Muppet creations.
What is all this, Jim?
It's television.
The crew, some still smoking, in the middle of their coffee, stare at the 3 strange kids. Max Rumson comes barging onto the floor.
Oh, everyone, smokes down, heads up. We got some young kids here. The Hensons gonna put some skits to tape. Not sure where we're slotting this one yet, but most important thing,
Have fun.
stay on time. Is this a kids show? Jim?
I'm not sure.
No.
Teen Jim starts holding up some of the Muppet cast of Sam and Friends. He starts with Sam, prize fighter with the protruding ears of Clark Gable.
We've got the star of the show, Sam, and some of his friends.
Paul Jr. holds up a vintage Professor Kermit, off color and missing his frill neck and webbed feet. It's nonetheless looks like Kermit generations would come to love.
Professor Kermit, Mushmellon, Yorick, Henrietta.
What are they? What the hell is a mushmallow?
They're Muppets.
For kids.
Well, puppet sounds like it's for kids. Muppets are for everyone, hence the name.
Yeah, you're gonna love this one. Jim's a bit jittery, but get him talking puppet and suddenly the big goofball comes to life.
Max winks at Jim. Paul and Jane try not to laugh.
The room is yours. Don't treat him too mean, huh? Or I'll hear about it.
Oh, of course. I'm not like that.
Max slaps his hands and heads on out.
Sam and Friends, day 1. Do good, kiddies.
Jim looks to Jane and Paul Jr. It's up to them now.
I guess we'll try something straight up, okay?
Later, Jim and Jane are putting one of their skits down to camera. Sam and a wigged-out Professor Kermit mouth That Old Black Magic by Louis Prima and Kelly Smith. Paul Jr. stands to the side, watching proudly. He taps his feet along to the song. This starts a montage of what will take us through Jim's early months of success with Sam and Friends in the mid-50s. These 2 Muppets bounce around the frame with manic energy.
Oh, black magic has me in its spell.
Old black magic that you weave so well.
Those icy fingers up and down my spine.
The same old witchcraft when your eyes meet mine.
The crew suddenly takes notice of the young performers. They realize straight away something is happening here. Interior Soundstage, WRC-TV, Washington, 1954, day. Another day on set. Well into the run of Sam and Friends, That Old Black Magic is still moving along. We see Jim staring at a monitor on the studio floor, holding Mushmellon, a strange Japanese-inspired Muppet, up to the camera. The operator is twisting the revolving turrets on the front, changing the lens to the 3 different focal lengths. Jim is practicing creating illusions with spiral perceptions. Using a wide-angle lens, Jim makes Mushmellon appear to be a great distance from the camera, then rush into a close-up with the speed of an express train, just by moving his arms slightly, a style that would one day become synonymous with Kermit the Frog. Interior control room, stage, WRC-TV, Washington, 1954, day. Musical montage continues. Teen Jim is up in the control room staring at a matte box. A technician is showing him how a black and white image can be placed on top of the camera feed to create an early superimposed graphic. Jim takes a white marker and draws a squiggly worm on a piece of black. The technician puts it into a matte box, and suddenly the image comes up on the screen. Teen Jim's eyes widen. Interior soundstage, WRC-TV, Washington, 1954, day. Jim and Jane are still performing Kermit and Sam mouthing that old black magic for the crew. Sam is far in the background in perspective to the camera, while Kermit is closer to the lens.
I should stay away, but what can I do? I hear your name and I'm aflame.
Sam races to meet Kermit, a little like Animal from the Muppet Show. The words spell across the screen as they sing, using the superimposed style Jim learned in the scene above.
Flame! Burning desire!
That only your kiss.
Put out the fire!
Interior driveway, Henson's house, Washington, 1954, day. Montage continues. Jim and Paul Jr. carry a new color television up the driveway, the other Henson kids watching excitedly. Betty smiles at her son proudly. Interior living room, Henson's house, Washington, 1954, night. Montage continues. Jim, Jenny, Paul Jr., Betty, Paul Sr., and the other Henson kids sit around a new color TV. They pass around a bowl of popcorn, excited. Sam and Friends starts. The opening titles animate on.
It's Sam and Friends, twice a day at 6 and 11, only on WRC-TV.
The family claps. Jenny smiles at Jim. Their relationship is blossoming. The disastrous date now far in the past. Interior soundstage, WRC-TV, Washington, 1954, day. Montage continues. Jim, far more confident, works with Jane and Paul Jr. on set. They're attempting an elaborate sight gag where the table, covered in grass, is holding a cardboard cutout of a car, clearly created by Jim. Sam, Omar, a bug-eyed, long-nosed Muppet, and Moldy Hay, a tanned hick Muppet, are being controlled by three of them, giving the illusion that these Muppets are driving along in the countryside, still singing along to That Old Black Magic. The crew laughs and claps along. Interior soundstage, WRC-TV, Washington, 1954, day. Montage continues. It's a Christmas party at WRC-TV. All the regulars from the station are standing around drinking, eating, mulling by the large Christmas tree. Teen Jim sees Jane sitting alone by the mistletoe. Determined, he goes to walk over, when Charlie gets there first, planting a kiss on her. Exterior car yard, Washington, 1955, day. Montage continues. Teen Jim strolls with Jenny, arm in arm. They search for a new car, now fully blossomed into a relationship. Exterior driveway, Henson House, Washington, 1955, day. Teen Jim poses by a white Thunderbird convertible in the driveway. Jenny reclines across the hood. The Henson family stand around cheering and clapping. Jim's even put on a black top hat for the occasion. Paul Sr. takes a photo, flashing us with white. Exterior freeway, Washington, 1955, day. Teen Jim and Jenny take the white Thunderbird convertible for a spin around Washington. Professor Kermit sticking out over the windscreen singing the song Still. Exterior makeout point, Washington, 1955, night. Professor Kermit sits out in the front of the Thunderbird, awkwardly facing out front, as Teen Jim and Jenny make out in the back of the car. Interior soundstage, WRC-TV, Washington, 1956, day. Montage continues. A typical day of shooting on Sam and Friends. The amount of people on the floor has tripled. Jane and Jim now being watched by not just the working crew now, but also a large audience of executives. Everyone is laughing, have a great old time. That old black magic is still going. Only Jim has worked up the courage to actually sing it by the stage, no longer lip syncing.
I should stay away, but what can I do? I hear your name and I'm aflame.
Mushmellon comes running down to the front of the camera.
Flame! Burn desire!
One of the suits is a smartly dressed man with glasses, Jimmy Dean, a talk show host. He grins at Max Rumson. Who is this guy?
Some kid we found in high school.
You'll want to lock down that contract down, Max. Whatever you're paying him, it ain't enough. Interior soundstage, WRC-TV, Washington, 1956, night. Montage continues. Teen Jim, the last one in the studio floor, repaints sets for tomorrow's taping. Max, drinking his evening scotch, wanders on in.
You work too hard to be the genius they say you are, kiddo.
Oh, there were some things that needed to get done before I headed off.
Listen, I had a word with Jimmy Dean this afternoon. You know who Jimmy Dean is?
Of course I know who Jimmy Dean is. Everyone knows who Jimmy Dean is.
He thinks you got a home here at WRC. And so do I.
Teen Jim just stares back at him like a stunned mullet. He's speechless.
I'll go ring my bosses and say yes, huh?
Thank you, Mr. Rumson.
He winks.
Just keep it coming, kid. That's all we ask.
Exterior Thunderbird, Washington, 1956, night. Teen Jim, excited, races home in his Thunderbird. That old black magic starts to wrap itself up. Interior front yard, Henson House, Washington, 1956, night. As Teen Jim pulls into the street, he sees a police car parked in the driveway. Concerned, he cautiously approaches the house. Interior living room, Henson House, Washington, 1956, night. Teen Jim, anxious, walks in the front door and sees his father, Paul Sr., comforting his mother, Betty, on the lounge. She can't stop crying. The other Henson children all have tears streaming down their faces. Something has happened. We see a police officer sitting across the other side of the room. His hat rests somberly in his lap.
What's going on?
Jim, why don't you come have a seat, son?
What's happened?
Something happened to your brother.
Teen Jim looks up. He starts to shake. Interior morgue, hospital, Washington, 1956, night. Teen Jim waits with his father, Paul Sr., as a nurse unzips a body bag. Inside is Paul Jr., bloodied and bruised. He's hard to recognize at all anymore. His father starts to dissolve, his normally reserved exterior completely broken down.
That's my boy.
He clutches Jim's hand for support. Jim can't stop staring into the bloodied face of his brother. Interior, Paul Sr.'s car, Washington, 1956, night. Paul Sr., broken, slowly drives through torrential rain. Teen Jim sits in the passenger seat, unable to talk. A long, painful pause.
Say something, for Christ's sake. Don't just sit there in silence.
Paul Sr. pulls his car over to the side of the road. He slumps against the wheel, sobbing.
I can't stop it coming to me. I can't.
Jim watches his dad, heartbroken.
My boy. I lost my little boy.
Interior Jim's bedroom, Henson House, Washington, 1956 night. Teen Jim lies awake in bed, listening to the sounds of sobbing from all the rooms of the house.
Paul, where's Paul?
He pulls the covers up over his head. Interior kitchen, Henson House, Washington, 1956 night. It's now the middle of the night. Betty sits at the kitchen table, halfway through a fresh bottle of scotch. Teen Jim sheepishly walks in, wearing his familiar striped pajamas.
Mom? Are you okay? Are you okay?
No.
Jim sits with her. She slides a glass across to him. Jim just shakes his head.
He loved you, you know. Your brother, he loved you so much.
Betty starts crying again.
Jimmy, make it stop. Make me laugh, would you? Go get your rat. You and your brother. Paul loved that rat.
Mom, I can't.
She won't hear this right now.
I'll go get it. Huh?
Betty, drunk, stumbles from the table. Leaving him alone with his thoughts, Jim shakes. It's all too much. He rushes out the front door. Exterior front yard, Henson House, Washington, 1956 night. Teen Jim pounds across the driveway, racing to his Thunderbird. Wound up, he rips his keys from the sun visor and roars the car into action. Exterior front yard, Jane's house, Washington, 1956 night. Jim's Thunderbird rolls up onto the lawn. Jim runs from the car, looking like he'll explode any second. He stumbles to Jane's house, his arms locking up against his sides. Jim throws a rock at the upstairs window, clearly distressed. Jane peers down from above and catches sight of Jim on the lawn, possessed.
Jimmy? What are you doing?
It's bubbling out.
It was a car accident. Paul.
What?
Paul's gone. He's gone.
Jane opens her window, pointing to the garden lattice.
Quickly, climb up, quick!
Interior, Jane's bedroom, Jane's house, Washington, 1956 night. Tripping over themselves, Jane helps Jim in through the window. She leads him into the bed, just as he bursts into tears.
Jim, it's okay. It's just us now.
I came home and there was a police car.
Shh.
We went to the hospital and he was.
No more talking. No more talking, okay?
Jim looks at her. He needs this. Impulsively, Jim goes to kiss Jane. She knee jerks away.
Jim, you can't.
Why? Why?
You just can't.
He looks at her, staring at the engagement ring on her finger.
Do you love him? Do you love him?
Jim?
Because I don't think you do.
You don't know that.
I see the way you are when you're with him, and I see the way you are when we're together.
Jim.
I love you.
A moment. They kiss, passionately and deeply, falling onto the bed. Interior floor, Arsenio Hall show, LA, 1990 day. Jim Henson, present day, stares out into a sea of faces, lost. Arsenio watches him with ever-building panic. They've been sitting in the silence for a while now.
Jim, you okay, buddy?
Jim comes around. He turns to Arsenio.
Would you, excuse me for a moment, Arsenio?
Arsenio smiles down at the lens as if nothing were wrong.
We'll be right back after this break.
Music plays as the camera pulls back. The audience is led into a forced applause.
And we're out.
Interior dressing room, Arsenio Hall show, LA, 1990 day. Jim bursts into his dressing room, collapsing at the makeup table. He stares into his reflection, troubled. He knows something is wrong. Kevin Clash bangs on the door.
Yo, Jim, talk to me, man.
Jim can't talk. He tries to loosen his collar.
Jim!
It's okay. It's okay. My throat got caught up. I'm all right now. I'm all right.
Kevin lets himself in. He stares at Jim, his face covered in sweat, his skin pale.
What the hell happened out there?
I don't know.
He shuts the door, worried someone will hear.
We're calling a cab. You're gonna go see a doctor.
I don't need to bother a doctor. It's a sore throat. I'm sure there's more important things they're dealing with.
Kevin grabs Jim by the face, forcing him to listen.
Jim, you are going to see a doctor.
Backed into a corner, Jim nervously nods, not wanting to be confronted about this. Exterior outside LA Studios, California, 1990 day. Kevin helps Jim into a cab.
Don't listen to anything this guy says. Take him straight to USC.
He bangs on the roof. The cap takes off.
Where you go?
Jim thinks about it.
Beverly Hills Hotel off of Beverly Drive and Sunset.
Interior bungalow, Beverly Hills Hotel, California, 1990 day. Jim sits on the bed, his elongated legs making his knees rise up in the air. He buries his head in his hands. Something strange is happening. Exterior Rome, Europe, 1959 day. 1959, a young Jim Henson, 23, walks the cobbled footpaths of the Piazza del Popolo. He wears a tattered brown leather jacket and a backpack. His face is already sporting hints of what would become his trademark beard, a small grizzled goatee spreading around his mouth like a rash. It's the middle of the day, and the marketplace is overcrowded. A street busker crouches underneath his red box and performs a Punch and Judy show. It grabs Jim's attention immediately. He watches all the local children smiling and laughing. Later, Jim watches another busker performing a dance Spanish marionette. He's fascinated. Later, Jim sits in a small theater, one of the only 3 in the audience. He watches a shadow puppet show. Later, Jim is back on the street. Nighttime is fast upon him. The place has been filled with lanterns casting a magical glow across the piazza. Suddenly, out of nowhere, an Asian-style dragon starts staking through the streets, a full-bodied puppet controlled by 3 performers. Jim gets swept up in the excitement. Interior hotel room, Rome, 1959 night. Jim sits at the end of his bed, playing with a wooden punch puppet he bought on the street. He takes off his shoes, noticing his big toe sticking through the top of his socks. He places a sock over his hand to further examine the problem, only to find that there are actually 2 holes in it. His fingers stick out of the sock like antennae. Jim, being Jim, clues into a character straight away. He starts making a whomping alien sound to go with it. Interior plane over Atlantic, 1959 day. Jim doodles in his notepad. We see what he's drawing. A strange dog-like creature is being formed, with eyes like fried eggs. It's an early sketch for Rowlf. Interior soundstage, WRC-TV, Washington, 1959 day. Jim Henson, brown leather jacket on, walks onto the busy set of Sam and Friends. Jane Neville, now 25, works with another puppeteer, Bob Payne, 23, a straight, now shooting, clean-cut man from Jim's college. They're in the middle of a skit where Yorick, a strange handkerchief over his face, sings I've Grown Accustomed to Her Face by Rosemary Clooney. Professor Kermit, again in the strange wig, sings
I've grown accustomed to your face. It almost makes the day begin. I've grown accustomed to the tune you whistle, night and noon. Your smile, your frown, the ups, the downs.
Jane, performing Yorick, finally notices Jim watching from across the floor. It throws her for a moment, making her miss a cue. Bob darts around her as he quickly recovers by thrashing Kermit around the air like with a manic mischief. The crew laughs. So does Jim. Jane blushes with embarrassment. Exterior outside WRC-TV Studios, Washington, 1959 day. Jane spots Jim resting against a fire door in the corner of the studio. She walks over, the 2 of them using this long walk to figure out what to say. They stare at each other, smiling, but nervous.
Did you get my letters?
I got them. I've read a couple of them a few times, actually.
The silence isn't fading.
You've been gone over a year now, Jim.
I couldn't stay away forever.
Why?
You know.
Jane tries to avoid the topic.
When did you get back?
Maybe an hour ago? Maybe hour 20 or something like that. I don't know. I dropped the bags and came straight here.
Despite her best intention, she starts melting.
Jim, I didn't get married. We called the engagement off. Before you ask and make a thing.
My mother wrote and told me already.
So don't ask and...
I'm sorry about that.
They slow down. Jane knows better.
No, you're not.
Sure I am.
Jane smiles knowingly.
No, you're not.
Interior Rumson Office, WRC-TV, Washington, 1959, day. Jim steps into Max's office. There are several Sam and Friends posters up on the wall. Max glares at him through cigar smoke.
So, the prodigal son decides to return.
Mr. Rumson.
Jim. You up and left us, kid. What should I say?
Some things were happening at home.
Well, you'd be glad to know your show has been doing just fine, even without you. Gladys is a pile of fan mail, and you should take that with you on the way out. Tired of signing your name.
Jim goes to get up.
You know what they say when your show starts running itself without you? Don't you, kid?
Not really.
They say it's time to move on to other things.
Oh, I don't.
What do you know about advertising, Jimbo?
Nothing at all.
Max smiles ear to ear.
Good. Unspoiled.
Interior Cafeteria, Washington, 1959, night. Jim and Jane sit across from each other in a booth, both working on drawings for a Wilkins coffee commercial. Bits of paper, half-eaten cobbler, and coffee are spread all over the table. Jim looks up from the sketch pad. He watches Jane drawing a furry monster in her book. He keeps staring.
Jim, stop it. We're meant to be working.
What?
She throws him a smile.
Jim, you know what?
He smiles and goes back to his drawings. We move under the booth and see Jim and Jane's legs rubbing together, the two of them occasionally giggling. Interior meeting room, Wilkins Coffee, 1959, day. Jim and Jane sit at a table with executives from Wilkins Coffee. He slides over a hand-drawn storyboard to the head of advertising, Bill Dyerson, 39. Bill stares at the strange comic book drawings of the two Muppet characters shooting each other.
So basically, there are these two characters, Wilkins, the little guy, and Wontkins, the big guy. Wilkins asks Wontkins if he's ever tried Wilkins coffee before, and when he says no, Wilkins shoots him across the screen.
The board looks at him rather strangely.
It's, hopefully funny, and it's something you could get away with when you're using, puppets, obviously.
The board continues their silence.
Have you, you have seen my show, right?
Bill suddenly explodes with laughter.
What do you reckon this is going to cost me?
$10.
$10?
Maybe $5 if I reuse one of the Muppets from Sam and Friends.
Tell you what, kid. I'll give you $300, and you go choose as many of these promotions as you think you can. How's that sound?
Jane and Jim look at each other. They can't believe it. Interior garage, suburban house, Washington, 1959, day. A low-key film shoot is underway in a suburban garage. Jim, a new confidence about him, walks around with Jane, inspecting the place. The crew literally consists of Jim, Jane, a cameraman, and a sound recordist.
Don't forget to thank your mom for letting us do this here.
She's excited I'm finally shooting something.
Suddenly, Ethel, the cameraman's mother, 64, waddles out with a tray of lemonade.
Would you kids like some lemonade?
No, thank you, Mrs. Morrows.
Ma, go back inside. You're embarrassing me.
Later, Jim and Jane are performing a skit in front of a black piece of cardboard. Jim provides the voice for both Wilkins, a wormy-looking Muppet, and Wontkins, a spud-like Muppet. Jane operates Wontkins. Sitting on a brick wall, Wilkins points a cannon at Wontkins.
Okay, buddy, what do you think of Wilkins coffee? I've never tasted it.
Wilkins wastes no time blasting Wontkins across the screen. He twirls the cannon around and points it down at the lens.
Now, what do you think of Wilkins?
A moment. Jim stands up.
Well, that's one in the can.
The team laugh.
Hey, has your mom got a hammer somewhere?
Exterior boardwalk, Maryland, Washington, 1959, night. Jim and Jane walk the same boards they had years before. The landscape has changed with time. Twice as many side shops have opened, and there are people everywhere now. But still, the old carnival twinkles in the background. They share an ice cream cone.
She used to be so loud here. How long was I gone?
It opened up more. Over time, I guess.
Pause.
Jane, when are we getting married?
Married? You haven't even proposed.
I didn't think I could.
Well, you can't.
See?
Jim, it wouldn't work out between us.
You don't know that.
You're my boss now.
So, you're older. That evens itself out in the mix.
Jim, no. Charlie's family would kill me. We only broke off the engagement 6 months ago.
Oh, man.
What?
Jim turns Jane around. They look off towards the harbor. A sign, made entirely of fireworks, ignites up. Marry me, Jane? Her face drops.
Spent my first paycheck hoping you'd say yes.
Suddenly, He'll Make Me Happy from the Muppets Take Manhattan starts to play. Jim takes Jane's hand in his own.
Would you...
Jim.
Not really sure how else to say it.
Not here.
I want to spend the rest of my life with you. You know that.
Jane thinks long and hard, her heart now sold.
I want to spend the rest of my life with you too.
Jim takes a deep breath. He grabs Jane's ice cream, and he kisses her. After a moment, he hands the ice cream back. Jane smiles and throws what's left of it in the water. They kiss again. We've entered a fantasy sequence involving a virtual army of Muppets, where Jim and Jane appear oblivious to the entire proceedings. A stream of water shoots up behind them, revealing a 50s-style jazz band. A parade of wooden puppets in the 50s early morning fashion suddenly fill the screen. Miss Piggy and Kermit, dressed in a ball gown and a tux, slowly walk towards each other.
He'll make me happy each time I see him. He'll be the reason my heart can sing.
Jim and Jane walk off toward the carnival.
He'll stand beside me and I'll have everything.
Exterior Ferris wheel, Carnival, Washington, 1954, night. Teen Jim and Teen Jane sit in a Ferris wheel cage, holding each other. Kermit and Piggy sit on the other side of them, still singing.
She'll make me happy each time I hold her, and I will follow where my heart may lead.
Jim rests his head on Jane's shoulder.
And she'll be all I'll ever need.
Interior Jim's Thunderbird, across the U.S., 1959, day. Jim, wearing his top hat, drives with Jane towards New York. Boxes are stacked up in the back. A carload of young, teeny Muppets drive along beside them.
Days go passing into years.
Another car drives across the other side, this one full of old folk Muppets.
Years go by passing day by day.
Interior First Office, New York, 1959, day. The first ever Muppet office, East 53rd Street, New York. Jim and Jane walk into the small, dusty space with their belongings. The place is empty. Two real estate Muppets show them around.
She'll make him happy now and forever.
Later, the office has been filled with furniture, decked out in the wild way only Jim Henson would. Frilly feathers over the gas pipes, strange space chairs, a working desk, a few posters from Sam and Friends. Jane and Jim share a Chinese takeaway on the floor, occasionally kissing between noodles. The real estate Muppets have been hung up on the wall with a group of other puppets for storage. Of course, they're still all singing. Until forever, their love will grow. Interior Studios, New York, 1959, day. First day of filming for Wilkins Coffee on the new decked-out studio space in New York. The sets are far more elaborate than they ever were back in Washington. Jim has built a Western set out of cardboard, with Wilkins and Wontkins now performing as cowboys. Jim and Jane perform underneath a table, still giddy in love. We see the camera crew is in fact a group of large monster puppets, all looking a little New York.
She only knows he'll make her happy. That's all she needs to know.
Interior Church, Washington, 1959 day. Montage continues. Jim's wedding day. It's a small family affair. 30 or 40 family in attendance, interspersed with Muppets everywhere. Jim waits with the priest, nervous as ever. The room turns. Jane, in full bridal gear, walks down the aisle.
They'll be so
happy now and forever.
forever. Their love will grow.
Their love will grow.
Later, Jim lifts Jane's wedding veil and kisses her. The place erupts with applause. Kermit and Miss Piggy stand on either side of them, dressed for their own wedding day, still lost in song.
I only know he'll make me happy.
Jim takes Jane's hand.
That's all I need to know.
Gonzo rushes down and takes a photo of them with his flash camera from the Great Muppet Caper, blinding them the screen with white. Interior bungalow, Beverly Hills Hotel, California, 1990 day. Back in 1990, Jim splashes his face with water at the sink. He is looking worse. Interior Mr. Chow's restaurant, California, 1990 night. Posh upmarket restaurant. Jim Henson, rugged up for a summer night, sits with Frank Oz, 46. He's looking like death.
Jim, you cold in here?
Oh no, it's the aircon. It's getting in my throat.
You want me to ask him to turn it down?
Jim retreats to his meal. Frank knows something is wrong.
You called Jane lately?
I don't see the point.
What point? You want to call her, you call her.
I can't pick up the phone every time I need to chat. I can't lay that kind of pressure on her anymore. We need to move on with our own lives.
Jim.
What?
Don't be an idiot.
Interior Frank's house, California, 1990 night. Frank Oz lives in a very modest Californian brick house. Posters from his directorial efforts litter the walls. Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, Little Shop of Horrors, The Muppets Take Manhattan, and The Dark Crystal. Robin, 43, Frank's wife, is sitting in the lounge watching David Oz, 9, put together a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles playset. Jim and Frank walk in from dinner.
Hello, hello. Daddy!
David rushes over and jumps up on his father's leg.
We've been putting together the sewer playset all night. Great fun.
Oh, I see.
Jim spots the Donatello action figure in David's hands.
What have you got there, Davey?
Donatello.
Oh, yeah. What's Donatello?
He's a ninja turtle. The smart one. He does machines.
He does.
Jim looks to Frank.
Why didn't we think of Ninja Turtles, huh?
Because you would have made them sing.
I could see that working still.
Interior study, Frank's house, California, 1990 night. Frank lines up a batch of Muppet Baby Happy Meal toys along his desk, part of a new series his company is hoping to launch later this year.
All right. They FedExed these down from New York, and Jerry made me promise I'd show you.
I'm not in the mood, Frank.
Jim sits in a plush leather chair drinking whiskey, quite uninterested in the PVC toys.
McDonald's are going to put your name on it either way.
Jim glances at the Muppet Baby figures out of spite.
They didn't go for the storyteller idea I gave them?
Har har.
They look different than the last ones. With different vehicles. What's Fozzie riding?
Looks like a cart.
Jim couldn't care less.
Fine, sure. Tell Jerry to put him through. They wouldn't listen if I said no anyway.
Frank pretends to write that down.
Fine. Sure. Put them through. Don't care anyway.
Jim leans his head back and sighs. When are we going to stop counting boxes and measuring suits? I'm in a time warp, Frank.
Frank puts the Muppet Babies back in their box.
Call Jane.
It's late.
Call her anyway.
Maybe you're the one who has a problem with this.
Frank throws his cordless phone in Jim's lap and wanders out of the room.
Call Jane. Right now.
Interior Henson office, New York, 1963, day. The Henson production office is far more advanced than the last time we saw it. 2 rooms now, with a nook for the secretary Carol, 19. One room is a workshop run by Don Shanlon, 35, Muppet head designer. A chirpy, clean-shaven man with a methodical outlook for costume work. While Jerry Jewell, 25, sits at a messy desk covered in papers and an Ampex tape machine. Muppet head writer, a dorky, light-haired man with glasses and squint. And the other is Jim's office, his door perched with a papier-mâché moose head and a dartboard with holes all around the bullseye, but none actually on it. A big Yorick head rests in the middle of the workshop, looking down onto East 53rd Street, Manhattan. Frank Oz, 19, at this stage still full of dark black hair, pours whiskeys at the drinks table.
Jim, call Jane.
For Christ's sakes, Frank, you old enough to be drinking hard stuff? Go downstairs and get yourself a sarsaparilla or something, eh?
They burst into laughter. Frank hits the music. Tenderly, from the Muppet movie starts to play in a 60s fashion. Jim, now 27 with a full beard, strides out from his office.
What's going on now?
Here comes the bearded one.
What are we drinking?
Call your wife. Tell her you'll be late.
Oh, yeah?
Call, Jim. Call. Carol?
Yes, Mr. Jewell?
Take the rest of the day off.
But it's not Friday.
What's your point?
I gotta use the bathroom.
Keep pouring, Frank. Keep pouring.
I'll see you tomorrow, honey. I just want to stay for one of those drinks.
Frank starts passing the whiskey around. Jim heads off to the bathroom. Interior bathroom, Henson office, New York, 1963, day. As Jim opens the bathroom door, a booby-trapped wire causes the shower curtain to open, revealing a giant monster face snarling from the bathtub. Jim just blinks. Strange thing happened all the time here.
Nice touch, Don.
What?
What do you reckon?
The boys can be heard thawing from outside.
You better watch out for those toilet monsters, Jim.
Interior Henson office, New York, 1963, day. Don stands very proudly with his drink, laughing at Jim with the other boys.
I've got no idea what you're talking about, Jimmy. No idea.
He goes to open his desk drawer when 3 spring-loaded worms shoot out, scaring him half to death.
Jesus!
He falls backwards off his chair and onto the floor. Jerry, Carol, and Frank roll around with laughter.
Nice. Very nice.
Jim's voice echoes through the room, laughing.
Why, thank you.
Interior backstage, Jimmy Dean show, New York, 1963, night. Don and Jerry are sitting around the green room before a taping of the Jimmy Dean show. They're still on the whiskey, enjoying life as only those in the 60s could. Jim and Frank lean against the wall, practicing tonight's performance with two-handed Rowlf puppet, a shaggy nightclub dog with a gruff voice and a dry sense of humor.
You move in sync 2, 3.
2, 3. I got it.
Abbott and Costello, 2 of you, I'm telling you.
Jim speeds back to Jerry as Rowlf.
Why don't you have another drink, Jerry? What's it been, 3 minutes?
Don reaches for Rowlf puppet.
Here, let me fix this stitch around his ear. I can see it slipping.
Jim hands Rowlf over. Jerry, between drinks, is jotting something down on paper.
What if you wait till Jimmy's in close and point out something like, "Nice hair, Mr. Dean. Is it yours?"
Huh.
He doesn't like it.
How do you know?
That's him saying he doesn't like something.
What do I say when I like something?
The same. It's the way you say it.
They crack up. An assistant waddles into the room. Hey, Mr. Jewell, we're running about 2 hours behind for rehearsals today.
Why didn't someone call?
We tried. No one was on the phone. Jerry eyes Frank like it was his fault. It wasn't.
That was you, Jerry. Don't look at me.
We're just gonna sit here for 2 hours now?
The assistant waddles out. Jim is suddenly taken by a small door, oddly positioned in the middle of the room.
What's with the mini door? There a better green room behind there?
Jim opens the tiny door. It's a shallow closet filled with a maze of steam pipes. His mind starts wandering.
You bring your paints, Dom?
Interior stage, Jimmy Dean Show, 1963 night. We're watching a taping of the Jimmy Dean Show. A group of farmers dance in the circle of a cardboard fence.
The Jimmy Dean Show!
We pan along a group of C-grade celebrities sitting by a farmhouse.
With Denise Glens, Molly Pease, Toots Randolph, and of course...
We pan across to Rowlf, the dog Muppet. He waves to the audience.
Your buddy Rowlf!
The dancers speed up their hoedown. A Camel Cigarettes logo supers on the screen.
Brought to you by Camel Cigarettes. The best tobacco makes the best smoke. Make it Camel time. Right now!
The dancers all fall into their knees as Jimmy Dean runs between them, full of energy.
And now, your host, Jimmy Dean!
Jimmy Dean welcomes the audience, a consummate pro. Such a nice guy to write a song like that. Thank you, thank you. Now, one piece of serious business to talk to you about tonight, and I know you know what serious business we're about. My buddy Rowlf was backstage earlier today, and a few of the folks around these parts have been on me all day about this amazing thing he's done in the dressing room. I wonder, Sammy, can we get in that camera backstage there a moment? We see on screen a cameraman rushing through the NBC hallways to the Muppets in a green room. Inside, Jerry Jewell is smoking his pipe, quite content. The camera focuses in on the utilities closet Jim was working on earlier. The Henson team decorated all the pipes with pieces of fur and paints. It now resembles a strange Henson-esque totem pole, like an early throw to the style of the Muppet Show.
Rowlf actually rushed back to the office to grab some of that fur you see there.
We cut back to the studio. How about that, folks? My buddy Rowlf and a little redecorating? Rowlf pipes up from the fence.
The mad dog!
The audience claps wildly. Later. Another moment from tonight's show. Rowlf is pretending to box the air from behind a fence.
Left cross, right cross, left cross, right cross, left cross, right cross.
He stares down the camera.
And if he hits me, blue cross, red cross.
The audience laughs. Jimmy Dean walks over to Rowlf dressed as a doctor, scaring him.
Ah!
We see from behind the set, Jim and Frank are performing in unison to operate the puppet. Now wait, I'm gonna help you. Now open wide, that's it. He sticks a paddle pop stick in Rowlf's mouth. Uh-huh. Rowlf suddenly taps him on the shoulder.
Hey, Doc. Doc. There's a hole in your headlight.
Now wait just a minute. The audience loses it, laughing hysterically. Jimmy can't help it either. He cracks up in the middle of the skit, hiding his face from the camera. Rowlf just mocks him down the lens. Interior Henson apartment, New York, 1963 night. It's late. Very late. Jim walks into the darkened apartment. Children's toys and clothes are strung everywhere. A pregnant Jane, now 29, clicks on a lamp. She's been sleeping on the lounge.
What time is it?
Past 2.
You didn't call. I made meatloaf.
The guys wanted to get an early dinner. We ended up in the street somewhere near the studio.
Were you drinking?
I was working, honey.
I put the kids to bed. They all said goodnight already.
Jim stares off. It's hard to know if he minds. Interior bedroom, Henson apartment, New York, 1963 night. Late night. It's dark. Jim lays in bed, staring at the ceiling. Jane reaches across and rests on his shoulders.
Been having some ideas about getting out.
Jim, it's late. The baby wants to sleep.
I gotta try something else.
You need to slow down.
honey, I get this part of the work done, and then we can do what we want. You know, we can have everything. You, me, the kids. We don't have to worry about variety shows and hiding behind sets anymore. We can just focus on being happy.
I thought we were happy.
Yeah, we are.
Interior bedroom, Henson apartment, New York, 1963, morning. Sun shines through the windows. Manhattan, 1963, is waiting outside. Jane stirs from her sleep. She goes to hold Jim, only to find he's not there. The clock on the bedside reads 6:30 a.m. Interior kids room, Henson apartment, New York, 1963, morning. Jim is sitting on a rocking chair reading Cinderella to Lisa Henson, 3, still wrapped up in bed. He nurses baby Cheryl on his lap.
And Cinderella ran down the steps as fast as she could.
She ran?
She ran.
Jane peers in the archway and watches for a moment.
Daddy, you didn't get much sleep last night.
He winks at Jane.
I promised Lisa I would finish our book.
Yeah, Mommy.
Jane just rolls her eyes.
I'll get breakfast started then, shall I?
Exterior Brooklyn Zoo, Central Park, New York, 1963, day. The Timepiece short film shoot. A quiet enclosure away from the public. Jim, dressed in overalls, covers a timid elephant in a pink paint. Don, Jerry, and Frank operate a 16mm camera off to the side, all casually smoking cigarettes.
How's the roll going?
Still 50 feet.
I'll move to the middle.
Frank whispers into Jerry's ear.
Do you have any idea what he's doing?
Not at all.
Exterior Hills, suburban New York, 1963, day. Another day of filming Timepiece. Don and Frank watch mortified as Jim runs along the hills. Dressed with wings like an early turn-of-the-century flying man, Jerry is trying to follow him with the camera.
Just keep following me. Keep following.
I got it, Jim. You're in frame.
Jim jumps into the air between two mounds, temporarily giving himself the appearance of flying.
Woohoo!
Interior Henson apartment, New York, 1963, night. Another lonely night at home. Jane watches the Ed Sullivan Show on TV. She cradles her newborn baby, Brian Henson. On TV, we see the famous inchworm sketch. Professor Kermit, sitting on a wall, sees a small worm crawling across the top. Hungry, he pulls at it to eat, only to find the worm is actually part of a giant monster nose. It turns around and swallows Kermit whole. Off TV, Lisa rolls over laughing. Jane puts a bottle in Brian's mouth.
Lisa, you'll get square eyes if you keep sitting that close.
Good.
Interior bedroom, Henson apartment, New York, 1963, night. Jane is awoken by Jim sneaking into the bedroom door. He collapses onto bed, still fully clothed.
How'd the show go?
Well, I guess. Well.
Jane kisses him lovingly on the forehead. Interior electronics store, New York, 1964, day. We see a rapid montage of Jim's appearances on the Jimmy Dean Show, Today, and the Ed Sullivan Show from 1963, 1964, all playing at once on a large wall of color TVs. Pulling back, we see Jim standing with the Henson family on the street, looking at the display. Interior toy store, New York, 1963, day. Jim and his family are dragged into an upscale toy store by Lisa. She goes straight for a wall of Rowlf puppets toward the back. A sign labels them, Rowlf from the Jimmy Dean Show. Jim picks one of them up. It bears a resemblance to the real thing, but it's not a touch of the actual Rowlf. Jim puts it on one of his arms and does the voice for Lisa.
Want to see me touch my nose?
Jim moves Rowlf to Lisa's face, gently rubbing noses, Eskimo style. Interior Henson office, New York, 1964, day. The whiskey and cigars are flowing. Jim, Jerry, and Frank and Don are watching the final cut of Timepiece up on a wall. It's a strange, abstract film, more artistic than narrative. Jerry smirks at the scene of Jim's head bursting through a tray of food.
Jim, how long is this thing?
10 minutes.
Bloody hilarious.
Gee, boys, I'm not going for funny.
It's good, Jim. Don't listen to him.
Interior upmarket restaurant, New York, 1964 night. Elaine's restaurant, New York, 1964. It's Christmas. Snow falls outside. Jim and Jane, both looking a little hippie, enjoy a warm dinner in the candlelit restaurant. They seem quite out of place compared to the other upmarket New Yorkers dining there tonight.
You ever imagine two kids from Maryland would end up eating at a place like this?
You should try this Colorado lamb.
What happened to the burgers?
We're celebrating.
Jim pulls an envelope out of his pocket and hands it to her.
What is it?
Take a look.
Jane pulls out a former-looking letter. Her mouth drops.
Jim, is this?
I know.
Is it real?
Well, it says Academy Award on the top. You can't fake that.
You got a nomination, Jimmy? Have you run your dad?
Well, let's not get carried away. It's for a short film. But maybe they'll fly us out to California, see some parties, take the kids to Disneyland.
Jimmy, of course you'll win. I can't believe this.
This is the start. It's the start of something new. I know it.
Exterior Uptown Street, New York, 1964 night. Snow gently falls to the pavement. Jim, a little drunk, walks with Jane. They both share an ice cream cone, just like they used to back in Maryland.
Can you feel us changing?
I can feel you changing, Ginny.
Finally, people are seeing it's about what you can do with the medium and not what it can do for you.
I know.
Jane hangs her head low.
I was thinking of maybe doing an art course down in Bridgeview. Get back to the swing of things again. I read it's quite good at this place.
Jim looks to her. He isn't sure how to respond.
What would you think of that?
Jim retreats into his ice cream. They continue on in silence for the rest of their walk. Interior Henson apartment, New York, 1964 night. Jim and Jane arrive home. Carol, the secretary, is sitting on the lounge doing a crossword.
Carol, you saved our life tonight.
Jim smiles, ever grateful, reaching for his wallet.
It's getting late.
Interior kids' room, Henson apartment, New York, 1964 night. Jim walks in, still a little drunk. He sees baby Brian and Cheryl asleep on their cots. Lisa lies in bed, hugging her Rowlf doll. A Cinderella book is left half open from where she tried to read it. Jim, his heart melting, walks over and closes the book. Jane watches him.
You coming to bed?
Just give me a few minutes with him.
Okay.
Jane walks out. Jim leans down and kisses young Lisa on the head. He pulls the covers up over her Rowlf doll. Interior Toys R Us, Manhattan, 1990 day. 30 years later, a giant wall of Muppet merchandise stares back at us. Jim, dressed in his trademark checkered shirt, stands staring at it all. He watches as a young boy races over and very eagerly picks up a Rowlf doll and drags it to his parents. Jim coughs and splutters into a handkerchief. Interior Cheryl's apartment, Manhattan, 1990 day. Jim waits. Cheryl Henson, 29, answers her door, still in pajamas.
Dad?
Oh, am I early?
No, yeah, about an hour.
I could go around the block and get a sandwich or something.
No. Pa's expecting us for dinner anyways. The sooner we're on the road, the better. It's fine. It's fine.
Okay, then. I'll meet you down in the car.
Okay.
Jim dawdles off, striding down the hallway. Interior Cheryl's car, driving across U.S., 1990 day. An old vintage car, suspiciously like the one Fozzie and Kermit drove in the Muppet movie, heads down a wide and empty road. Manhattan can be seen disappearing off in the distance. Jim is falling asleep in the passenger seat, cradling against the window. Cheryl, driving, keeps glancing at him.
How's everything with the new show?
Which one?
It's no wonder you can't stay awake.
I'm awake. I'm awake.
Long pause.
Oh, shoot. Sorry. My tablet's gonna die and I lost my battery. You spoken to Mom lately?
Not really. Is she seeing anyone?
What does that matter? You've been on dates.
No, I haven't.
Yes, you have. You can't be you and think people won't know what stuff you're like.
What's that supposed to mean?
People write about what sandwich you buy at in the morning. You can't go to a restaurant and not have someone notice that you don't take your wife.
Ex-wife.
She was upset when she saw that, you know.
How upset? I didn't...
Who was she?
Someone Bernie set me up with. I can't remember her name. I left before dessert to go watch Johnny Carson.
A moment. They both start laughing. Suddenly, Moving Right Along from the Muppet movie starts playing. Into dream. Jim does a double take. Kermit pops up from the back seat, singing into Jim's ear.
Moving right along in search of good times and good news. With good friends you can't lose.
Suddenly, he turns to the driver. No longer Cheryl, but now Fozzie Bear.
This could become a habit.
Jim looks out the window. Suddenly, they're driving along a strange dreamscape. Outside, years of Jim's memories go passing by in Muppet form. His first car, his first kiss, his first job.
Opportunity knocked once, let's reach out and grab it. Together we'll nab it.
Yeah, we'll hitchhike, bus, or yellow cab it.
Suddenly, Jim snaps out of it. Into car. Cheryl looks at her father, confused.
Dad?
Yeah.
Something's wrong.
He can hardly keep his eyes open, falling back asleep against the glass. Exterior, Middle America, 1990 day. Cheryl's car continues speeding across the dust road as Moving Right Along kicks back up into high gear.
Moving right along. Footloose and fancy free.
Interior, Cheryl's car, across the U.S., 1990 day. Kermit and Fozzie sing to Jim.
Getting there is half the fun. Come share it with me. Moving right along.
We cut to Jim sleeping against the window. He's imagining all of this.
Dogadoom, dogadoom.
We'll learn to share the load.
Kermit and Fozzie pop up again from the back seat to finish off the song.
We don't need a map to keep this show on the road.
They disappear back behind the seat. Cheryl looks again at her father leaning against the window, his lips twitching. She pulls over, rushing out to Jim's side of the car. Opening the door, she gently taps her father awake.
Dad, what's going on?
He takes a moment to open his eyes.
Huh?
You just passed out all of a sudden.
No. No, I can hear you.
You passed out.
It was the air conditioning. It put me to sleep.
She's not sure what to do.
We'll be at pause in a couple of hours. Why don't you put the seat back and get a proper rest?
Yeah, maybe a little.
Jim puts the seat back and tries to get some more rest. Cheryl drives off down the dusty road again. Interior, Henson office, New York, 1968 day. The Henson office has expanded over the last few years. Twice the space, twice the Muppets, twice the staff. The core group, Jim, Jerry, Dawn, and Frank, are standing around a TV with the rest of the office. Something's happened. On TV, we see the CBS News logo, special report.
This is the CBS News special report.
Dan Rather comes on looking quite solemn.
Dan Rather, reporting for CBS News New York. The Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. was shot to death by an assassin today. I stood by on a balcony in Memphis.
We see footage from the aftermath of the assassination.
Dr. King had planned to lead another civil rights march in Memphis next Monday. We got the latest on the story now from Moss Hodge, news director of WREC TV in Memphis.
Off TV, Jim and the gang are speechless. Behind them, a giant wall of animal-themed puppets dwarf the room.
There's a zoo out there.
Interior Henson apartment, New York, 1968 night. Jim is sitting on the lounge. He's been watching reports on the Luther assassination all afternoon. Lisa Henson, now 8, sits with him, while Cheryl Henson, now 6, is asleep on a rug. Brian Henson, 5, plays with a toy train set by the window. They've had another child over the years. John Henson, 3. He's sitting in a high chair trying to eat some applesauce. Jane walks in with an apron on. She looks out of place in domesticated garments.
Jim, turn it off. The kids don't need to see this.
How can we live in a world where something like this can happen? I mean, they got the president, they got Luther. I don't believe it.
Who has got Daddy?
Important men. Very important men.
Suddenly, a commercial for Apple Jacks breakfast cereal comes on. The Henson kids spring to life. They rush and huddle around the glowing box. Overjoyed, they sing along.
A is for apple. J is for Jacks. Cinnamon toasty Apple Jacks.
Jim watches as his kids lose interest as soon as the commercial finishes. He thinks. Interior lecture hall, Boston, 1968 day. Joan Cooney, 39, a vibrant, well-educated, and wealthy woman of class, treads a lecture stage. The auditorium is full of scholars and left-of-center artists. This is a consortium of children's television. Jim sits among them.
The main directive at the Children's Television Workshop is to encourage new ways of reaching out to underprivileged inner-city youngsters. The basic premise is to create a show that capitalizes on children's love of slick editing and jingles found in commercials, and we put them to non-corporate use. Why not use these same techniques that work so well selling breakfast cereals to children to also help them learn?
Joan smiles to the silent audience, undeterred.
Let me play a clip from the Ed Sullivan Show used in English classes around the country to explain the concept of world associations to preschoolers.
Joan stands back as a clip projects onto the wall. On screen, Professor Kermit is talking with a grump, a newsreader type Muppet, on a blue background.
Like, man, that's my scene. You see, because I am a bona fide true blue, guarantee your money back visual thinker.
Strange superimposed dots and symbols are appearing above Professor Kermit's head.
Watch.
A watch super suddenly appears above Kermit's head.
I say it's true. You can do it too.
A number 2 appears above Crump's head.
Yeah, see? I dig it.
A spade appears above Kermit's head and starts digging. Off screen, Joan smiles very proudly to the auditorium, half of them getting up to leave.
Television can teach. Remember that. Television can teach.
Jim is intrigued. Interior Henson office, New York, 1968 day. The Henson team are sitting around a circle staring at a mock-up Cyclia tent, the product of a psychedelic time. Cyclia is Jim's concept for a discotheque, a cloth dome made of white fabric that would have various trippy images projected onto it. Frank Oz hits a button on a small slide projector. The team watches in awe as the small mock-up comes to life like a living kaleidoscope.
This is that new footage you shot for Cyclia last weekend. I think it works well, yeah?
Good. But maybe we do another with blue and green as a variation.
Frank looks to Jerry.
I feel like we've wasted 3 years with this thing, you know?
You don't want to do installations anymore, Jim?
I don't know.
Jim walks over to the Muppet storage wall. The team watch, concerned.
Jim, if you're gonna jump, just leave the Thunderbird to me, okay?
You know what we need?
He puts the Cookie Monster puppet on his arm, a blue, furry monster with the insatiable appetite for anything he can fit in his mouth. He walks over to Cyclia before the room knows what's happening. Cookie Monster starts devouring the mock-up into pieces.
A little more fun again.
Interior Oscar's Tavern, Manhattan, 1969 day. A decrepit tavern on the Upper East Side. Even the rats feel dirty here. Jim, Frank, Don, and Jerry are the only patrons they've had this week. The table is filled with drawings and scripts for Sesame Street. 2 empty bottles of scotch resting among the debris.
What do you think of this?
Jim holds up a doodle he's been working on over a few drinks. It shows a large yellow bird etched with the figure of a man inside, detailing how this giant Muppet might work.
Kind of like a kid-friendly LaChoy.
What is it?
It's a chicken. I don't know. We'll have him come to life once we build him. We just gotta make sure he's preschool friendly.
That's gonna be one really big bird.
Hey, we get out an order here?
The waiter, Pete Oscarson, 37, a grouchy New York type, grumbles over to them.
Yeah?
What's the special today?
There's no specials.
Thought the board said ask about our specials.
Sure. Today, it's my hand up, you ass. No specials, okay?
The group stare at him. They try not to laugh.
I'll just get a burger then.
No burgers. We're only doing bar food.
Jerry starts chortling. Jim's trying to stay composed.
What's the bar food?
Fries or onion rings. That's it. When you're the only guys in here all week, what do you want me to do? Stock out the kitchen just for you? Send your friends here. Then we'll do some specials.
I'll, take fries then.
Yep. You.
Same.
Yeah, same.
It'll be about 40 minutes. I gotta start the fryer up.
He crumbles off. They roll over laughing as he leaves. Interior Kaufman Studios, CTW, New York, 1969 day. Sesame Street pre-production, a vintage studio in the middle of Queens, has been transformed into a giant New York street. A production meeting is underway with Joan Cooney, John Stone, 38, a bearded gentleman, head writer and producer of the show, and Sam Gibbon, 35, a typically New York-looking film producer. Frank Oz and Don Shalin sit at the side with a table of Muppets to present. Jim Henson passes a sketch across to the table for Joan to look at. It's his Big Bird sketch.
Okay, this is our Big Bird. Basically a loving but stubborn perennial 6-year-old, like we talked about.
Or Jim is a 6-year-old with feathers.
Yeah, but smarter. Okay, Carol, please meet Big Bird, our hero of the show.
Carol Spinney, 36, a tall, gray, bearded man, walks in, performing Big Bird.
Hello, Joan, everybody! Wow, what a big place this is! I've never been somewhere this big before! Wait a moment! Is that trash I smell?
The group laughs.
Okay, our Brooklyn ain't that authentic.
Oh, well, you can't put them all! I forgive you.
That's a bird talking to me.
Jimmy, you're telling me there's actually a guy in that?
It's a full body puppet, like the LaChoy dragon.
Jim walks over and reveals the head flap on Big Bird's chest. Carol's face pokes through.
Hi, how you doing? Carol here.
We met Carol at the convention in Salt Lake City last month. I think, if we do this the way we're thinking, we're going to need a few more puppeteers to come aboard. More ideas than hands at the moment.
Tell me about it.
Joan's eyes widen. She can't believe it.
Jim, it's magic, pure magic.
Interior backdrop, Kaufman Studios, New York, 1969 day. Still in planning for Sesame Street, we see Bert and Ernie, performed by Frank Oz and Jim Henson, up against a fence. Joan, Sam, John, Don, and Carol are all rolling them over themselves with laughter. Bert is an uptight, vertical Muppet, while Ernie is the complete opposite, being shaped flat and horizontal.
Hey, Bert, want to play a game with me?
Oh no, Ernie.
Just repeat after me. I won the sandbox. I 2 the sandbox. I 3 the sandbox. Just keep it going.
I 4 the sandbox.
I 5 the sandbox.
I 6 the sandbox.
I 7 the sandbox.
I 8 the sandbox.
Wait, you ate the sandbox?
A long pause. Bert realizes.
How'd it taste, Bert?
Oh no.
Ernie laughs. The group claps. Jim stands up, putting the Ernie puppet down.
It was sort of Laurel and Hardy, but for kids, you know? You like them?
Jim, this thing is going to be incredible.
He smiles.
We've got more.
Interior Henson office, New York, 1969 day. Sesame Street production is now in full swing. Don is working with another puppet builder now to get the job done. Carly Wilcox, 26, a woman of short stature and strong heart. Jerry Nelson, 35, an orange-haired man who resembles an Old West prospector in hippie clothes, works with Frank Oz, testing out several new Muppets. At the moment, they're practicing on Grover, a dweeby blue monster, and the Count, a Dracula-inspired character obsessed with numbers instead of blood.
Let me count your fingers.
Ah! Keep away from me, you freak!
Lisa Henson watches them with her younger sister Cheryl. They can't stop laughing.
Let me count your teeth. 1, 2, 3.
Get him off me! Please, girls, please!
Jim Henson walks past with Jane. She nurses a baby bump again. John Henson, 4, walks around behind her, a little frightened of all the monsters in the room.
We're gonna need a bigger space.
How many more do you have to make?
Oh, we're taking characters from Sam and Friends and Jimmy Dean, but we still need another 15, 20 or so to make Sesame Street work. I'd get you and the kids in on it if I could. We'll need every puppeteer I can find in the Bay Area.
Don pipes up across the room.
Hey, you coming back to this insanity, Jane?
No. I am done with you boys and your toys. Thank you.
Muppets.
Jim notices his son John hiding behind his mom's leg.
Johnny, what's the matter, buddy?
The monsters.
Jim isn't quite sure what to do. Frank notices. Grover's still perched on his arm. He rushes over to Jim and crouches down into John, making it appear as if Grover was hiding on Jim's lanky legs, the way he is.
What did he say?
I think Johnny said he saw some monsters.
Ah! Monsters? Where?
John can't help himself. He chuckles.
Where are the monsters? I don't want to see a monster. You've got to save me, Johnny.
No, you're a monster.
What? Me? A monster? You must be joking. I'm not a monster. I'm a little boy, like you.
John keeps laughing.
No, you're a monster.
No, I think you are the monster now.
No.
You are not?
You're the monster.
Monster? Where? Ah!
Frank pulls Grover away, making him appear to run across the room. John hasn't even realized he stepped away from Jane's leg. Jane looks at Jim and smiles.
What happened to all the adult projects?
I found a more appreciative audience.
Jane rolls her eyes. She looks around the room.
Where's Brian? Brian?
Found Oscar.
They all turn and look. Brian Henson, 7, is talking to a green Muppet in a trash can. Oscar the Grouch. Carol Spinney is lying on the floor, performing him.
Hey, kid! We ain't got no specials today!
What?
Jerry smiles at Jane.
This is the guy from the tavern, toned down.
Wow.
Kiddo, this is my trash zone. Get out of it.
No.
Hey, who belongs to this brat? His dad's got to be a real piece of work.
Carol, you're enjoying that one far too much.
Who's Carol? Bozo.
Jane wells up. Without meaning to, she bursts into tears in front of everyone.
I'm sorry. Sorry.
Jane rushes out. Jim, not knowing what's happening, follows her. Exterior New York Street, 1969 day. Jane, tears streaming, hurries away from the Henson office. Jim chases her.
Jane, what's going on?
Jim,
What are you doing?
go watch the kids. I need some air for a while.
Just slow down. Jane.
Jane keeps pushing through the crowd. Jim grabs her, turning her to face him.
Don't!
What's going on?
She turns away, unable to look him in the eyes.
Are you mad at me for something?
I'm not mad.
If you can't talk to me, what hope have we got?
Jane clutches the cuffs of his shirt.
You're gonna leave us. Me and the kids. It's something that happens. It's the way my life works.
Don't say that.
You can't measure up to you, and you'll go. I know. You'll see it. Maybe not tomorrow, but soon. You'll realize there's better out there, and then these brief moments I've had in your charmed life will have passed me before I even had a chance to prove it to you. I have it in me too.
Jane, that's not true.
Jane turns and walks away. She can't bring herself to keep it up. Jim watches her disappear into the crowd. Interior Henson office, New York, 1969 day. Jim walks back into the office. All eyes are on him. No one wants to be the first to ask. He jumps in for them.
I think she needs some air. You know?
He dawdles back over to the kids. Interior Henson apartment, New York, 1968 night. Brian, Cheryl, Lisa, and John are all sitting around a small wooden table as Jim dishes out Chinese takeaway onto their plates. All eyes turn to the front door as a pregnant Jane creeps back in. No one says anything. The kids remain quiet. Jane heads straight for the bedroom. Interior bedroom, Henson apartment, New York, 1968 night. Jim opens the door. Jane is sitting on the bed, taking her shoes off slowly. He holds out a box of Chinese food for her.
We got you chicken noodle, if you want.
I've already eaten.
What you have?
I had a pretzel from the street corner.
Oh.
Jane stares at the floor. She can't look at him.
Your show's going to be amazing, Jimmy. It really is. I'm so sorry.
Jim joins her on the bed.
You know, since Paul died, I feel like I've been doing is chasing the time I've lost. I want my life to be everything it can be, and you're the most important part of that. You're the only part that matters.
Still unable to look him in the eyes, Jane rests her head on his shoulders, melting. Interior edit suite, New York, 1970. Evening. We see a television monitor on a linear desk, edit desk. It displays the Sesame Street opening from 1970. On TV, a bunch of New Yorker inner city kids run around Sesame Street.
Sunny day, sweeping the clouds away. On my way to where the air is sweet. Can you tell me how to get to Sesame Street?
The kids are suddenly interacting with the Sesame Street Muppets. Big Bird, Bert, Ernie, Oscar the Grouch, Rover, Cookie Monster, and the Count.
Come and play. Everything's A-okay. friendly neighbors there. That's where we meet. Can you tell me how to get to Sesame Street? How to get to Sesame Street? How to get to...
The song fades out to the first segment of the show, Bert addressing a gathering of Muppets at a podium. Off TV. Jim Henson and the editor turn the volume down.
All right, lock it in.
I'll cross that off with compliments. There's a knock on the suite door.
Knock, knock.
Joan Cooney, the executive producer, walks in with a copy of Variety and an envelope.
Hey, Jim, you got a minute?
Interior Kaufman Studios, CTW, New York, 1970 evening. Joan and Jim walk out into the wings of Sesame Street set. We see only the busy crew wrapping another day of shooting. Mr. Snuffleupagus, a giant Muppet woolly mammoth, is being hoisted into the ceiling with a pink tarp draped over it.
We just sold Mexico and Canada.
Oh, Joan, that's fantastic. Congratulations.
And the best part is, drum roll, I just got off the phone to Ed, and we got 4 Emmy nominations.
You're joking me. I can't believe that.
Joan holds up the Variety page with Emmy nominations. She's already highlighted the Sesame Street ones.
#1 children's show, 13 weeks and counting. That has never happened before in the history of television. You think we're not going to win those golden statues?
Jim seems nonplussed.
Do you ever smile?
I told Jen I'd be back an hour ago.
Trouble with the tape system?
We were just messing around with a few of the animations. It's my fault. Episode is locked now.
Good. I can't wait to see this one.
Joan stuffs an envelope in his pocket.
Don't work too hard, Jimmy. We need you at your best right now.
Joan walks off. Jim takes a look inside the envelope. It's a check made out to the Henson Company Party Limited for $564,352. Jim, shocked, doesn't notice Kermit creeping up behind him.
It's not easy being green, having to spend each day the color of the leaves.
Jim looks around at the busy Sesame Street set.
When I think it would be nicer being red or yellow or gold, or something much more colorful like that.
Jim and Kermit look at each other, understanding. Exterior New York Street, 1970 night. Jim and Kermit make their way home along the snowy streets of New York. They stare at a giant advertisement across Times Square for Sesame Street. It features all the Muppet characters waving to the frozen crowds.
It's not easy being green. It seems you blend in with so many other ordinary things.
Jim sees a young mother pushing her baby in a pram. The pram is decorated with Sesame Street patterns, a little Big Bird toy trying to peer out.
And people tend to pass you over 'cause you're not standing out like flashy sparkles in the water.
Jim and Kermit look up to the sky. They're unrecognizable in this big city.
Or stars in the sky.
Interior elevator, Henson apartment, 1970 night. Jim and Kermit lumber into the elevator of their apartment building. He's exhausted.
But green is the color of spring, and green can be cool and friendly like.
They get out and bumble down the hallway. Jim waves at his neighbor as they pass in the hall. Interior Henson apartment, New York, 1970 night. Jim and Kermit through the front door, about to collapse. There's no one around. Concerned, they go looking.
And green can be big like a mountain, or important like a river, or tall like a tree.
Jim sees a note on the fridge. He reads it, his face dropping. Interior Henson apartment, New York, 1970, morning. Jim and Kermit haven't slept. They're sitting on the lounge staring at the large check resting on the coffee table, wedged between a Macy's brochure for Sesame Street merchandise and a newspaper clipping for the anniversary of the assassination of Martin Luther King.
When green is all there is to be, it could make you wonder why But why wonder? Why wonder?
They look up to the television. Sesame Street is playing. Jim gets up from the lounge and walks to the window. Across the street, he can see 5 or 6 kids in front of different apartments watching Sesame Street on their TVs right at this very moment. The smiles on their faces says it all.
I am green, and it'll do fine. It's beautiful, and I think it's what I want to be.
Jim turns to the sound of the front door opening. Jane walks in with the kids. She puts a suitcase back down on the ground. Interior farm, Ashoki, North Carolina, 1990 day. Years later, a familiar face leans into the passenger window at Jim Henson, still dozing in his seat. It's Betty Henson, his mother, 76, old and gray now, but still full of life.
Jimmy, you're home, my darling.
Jim opens his eyes. His mother smiles down at him.
You're gonna miss lunch if you don't get up. We let you sleep as long as we could.
What time is it?
It's time to cut the turkey.
Interior dining table, Henson Farm, Ashoki, North Carolina, 1990 day. Jim sits around a table with his mother and father, Paul, 80, and Betty. Cheryl, his daughter, brings in a basket of hot cornbread.
Falling asleep like that, Jimmy? Why am I using Oscar's voice? You ought to not have so many late nights, wouldn't you think?
I'm just battling a flu at the moment.
You been getting to church?
Dad.
Grandma, I keep telling him to go see a doctor. Can you please tell him he needs to see a doctor?
Jim does need a doctor. There's no reason to bother with a professional with something like a flu. I can tell you what's wrong. Jim needs to sort himself out. He needs to get back to church. Even just the once. You're receiving a message here.
There's no message. Just run down.
Hector James, 3 farms up, woke himself with a locked back not so long ago. Claimed it was a fruit picking. Went to church next week and all was well on Monday. Gonna look after you if you look after him.
I fell asleep in the car. That's all. Not coughing up blood. Please, everyone, just drop it.
I'm only saying, Jimmy.
I got it, Dad. I got it.
Betty watches her son, concerned. She passes him some cornbread. Exterior farm, Ashoki, North Carolina, 1990 afternoon. Jim, perked up, plays a rousing game of croquet with the Henson family, the other brothers and sisters having now arrived. Exterior porch, Ashoki, North Carolina, 1990 dusk. Jim sits on the porch, stuck between 2 older renovations and the fence to the Henson farmhouse. It's Jim's secret porch. Paul Henson stumbles out and sits with him. They watch the orange sun setting across the Carolina horizon in silence.
Your mother thinks you're depressed.
Not depressed.
Well, I'm looking at you, Jimmy, and for a man who's achieved what you have, had the life you've lived, you don't look so happy about it.
Of course I'm happy.
Son, you need to get back with Jane. Put that right.
She's not my wife anymore.
Paul thinks on this a while.
I don't know who you think you're fooling.
Paul slaps him on the knee, his fatherly duties finished.
You gotta put things right with that woman as soon as you can. While you can, Jimmy.
Jim continues to stare. He sees a land strider from the dark crystal slowly moving across the horizon in the silhouette. Interior, SNL, NBC Studios, New York, 1975, night. October 1975, the first season of Saturday Night Live. Strange Muppet-type creatures are performing in front of a bubbling tar pit, part of a fictional land called Gorch. A live audience watches as the show goes down. King Ploobis, a giant pompous lizard, is being performed by Jim Henson, 40, while Queen Piuta is performed by Alice Tweedy, 35, a timid blonde woman of short stature.
Ploobis, do you know what your son Whis is doing?
What? Has he locked himself in the bathroom with a magazine again?
No, your son was smoking craters.
No,
Yes,
not my son. Why, my son is he's
a craterhead.
a craterhead.
The audience seems restless. No one is laughing. Backstage, Lorne Michaels, 31, the young hotshot brains behind the show, is watching the Land of Gorge sketch from behind the wings. He whispers into a headpiece.
That's 3 for 3. Not too late to pull in laugh tracks, huh?
Backstage, Lorne receives this message from the control room. The technicians are watching the live camera feed from the sketch. Some of the banks of monitors show unimpressed audience members. A director barks down to the headpiece.
I've got some unhappy people out there, Lauren. This stuff isn't funny. Someone should tell this guy to stick to preschoolers.
Backstage, Lorne receives the message from the room. He looks across to the head writer for the show, Michael O'Donoghue, 35, a hard-looking comedian type.
What the hell is this?
I don't write felt, Lorne. Don't look at me.
Back on stage, the sketch comes to a close. The audience is dead quiet as Jim Henson and Alice Tweedy rush off stage. A prompter starts the clap, avoiding any embarrassment.
Ladies and gentlemen, Saturday Night Live is back in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Chevy Chase, 32, a tall, handsome regular on the show, bounds out to a thunderous applause.
In America today, certain oppressed minorities are treated like second-class citizens, all because of a harmless little affliction, referred to as saliva displacement difficulties, or, as we are sometimes called, droolers.
Chevy trickles drool down his chin. The audience erupts into hysterics. Backstage, Jim Henson, Frank Oz, 31, and Alice Tweedy stand with their Gorch Muppets. They all watch the Chevy Chase sketch, a little disappointed. The audience is actually responding to this one.
Probably just an off night, Jim. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Interior upmarket restaurant, New York, 1975 night. Posh restaurant near NBC. Jim Henson and Frank Oz are sitting with Bernie Billerstein, 44, a powerful, well-dressed man with a typical New York agency attitude.
It sure didn't go so well, man. Sure didn't go so well. It's always next week. Flash the last 5 years of enemies from S Street, then we'll see who's smarter.
Lauren's gonna drop the segment. It's 3 for 3 tonight. He's back into a corner.
Saturday Night Live loves the Muppets. That's a fact. I'm your agent. I know things you don't. NBC wouldn't let you go.
We should be writing our own material. We know how these segments can work, but we're given these pieces. We can't make that funny.
You're right. You can be on your own show. I'm working on that. Close. Real close.
Jim buries his head in his plate.
Look, I don't want to be pigeonholed as a children's entertainer, Bernie. I want to move into something everyone can enjoy. That's where I started. That was the plan, you know? Saturday Night Live, it's not the right place.
Trying, Jim. Trying.
Interior expensive Henson apartment, New York, 1975 morning. The Henson apartment has been upgraded, courtesy of the giant wealth Jim has accumulated over the last few years of Sesame Street. No longer filled with the hippie-style relics from the 60s, the place seems a shrine to all things Muppets, Sesame Street merchandise proudly on display around every corner, including a mock-up Big Bird head on the wall and a stained glass window of Bert and Ernie. On TV, the opening of the Sonny and Cher comedy hour. Cher, a tall, attractive young woman, verbally spars with her husband Sonny, a much older Southern Italian man.
Shit, come on, stop it. My friends are out there watching the show.
Hi, Dopey, I'm Doc.
Off TV, Jim watches with his children, Lisa, 15, Cheryl, 13, Brian, 12, and John, 10. Jane Henson, 41, sits with Heather, 5, on the other side of the room, knitting. They're one big happy family, at least on the surface. On TV, we see an Egyptian skit from Sonny and Cher. Cher is dressed as Queen Cleopatra, lying across a sofa.
Another Cairo night, and here I am all alone. Cleopatra,
the greatest woman in all of Egypt, without a date or even a night.
Sonny walks in dressed as Mark Anthony.
You called, oh, Egyptian ruler?
Yes, I did, oh little Italian meatball.
The audience erupts into hysterics. Off TV, Jim looks around. His kids are laughing. Even Jane gets a small giggle out. On TV, Sonny and Cher sing Baby Don't Go together. Off TV, Heather has jumped off of her mother's lap and has started dancing around the room. The Henson family just laughs.
Dad, can we get the puppets?
Well, honey, it's late. Jane, what do you think?
Oh yeah, please, please.
Jane just shrugs.
Y'all finished with your homework?
The kids nod in unison, excited.
John, you finished your home? You finished too?
Yeah, it's an honor.
Interior kitchen, New Henson apartment, New York, 1975 night. Brian Henson takes a Sonny and Cher vinyl, carefully place it on the player. The kids all gather around the kitchen bench. A verbal banter starts. We suddenly see Kermit the Frog, now with the frilly neck and webbed feet from Sesame Street, jumps up on the stove, performed by Jim. Another puppet, a strange female pig, Hoggy, recognizable as an early Miss Piggy, pops up next to Kermit, being performed by Jane. Hoggy has a trademark blonde wig that would become the staple of Miss Piggy in time to come. The Muppets mouth words to Sonny and Cher vinyl.
Cher, come on, stop it. My friends are out there watching the show.
Hi, Dopey. Hi, Dog.
What's with you tonight? Just take it easy, will you, please? What if you were sitting there and watching us, right now? Be honest, what would you say?
I'd say the same thing everyone else says. What does she see in that man?
Huggy pretends to karate chop Kermit. The kids bowl over laughing, everyone except Lisa and John, who stand at the doorway rolling their eyes.
I don't get it. You're both embarrassing.
Not funny.
Boo to the peanut gallery whiners and on with the show. Yay!
Boo to you, Froggy.
Frog legs!
There's more than a little Waldorf and Statler in them. Jim and Jane share a knowing look under the table. I Got You, Babe starts to play. Kermit and Hoggy mouth along to the record as the Henson kids join in singing.
They say we're young and we don't know. We won't find until we grow old.
Well, I don't know if all that's true, 'cause you got me and baby, I got you.
Babe,
I
got
got
you,
babe.
babe.
I got
you,
babe.
babe.
Interior office, Waldorf, New York, 1975 day. The most extravagant New York office imaginable. Jim sits with Bernie, Jerry Hull, now 37, Frank Oz, Don Shalin, now 47, and Richard Hunt, 24, by the receptionist desk. Richard is the youngest of the Henson group, a clean-shaven, squeaky clean performer. Jim nervously pours water into a glass.
I've been in expensive places, Bernie, but this takes the cake. I'm nervous just drinking the water.
Blue grade is serious money, my friend. Your money. Don't get me wrong, I'm money. But this guy's serious money. Dead serious.
Sounds perfect for this.
Miss Tracy, 21, the secretary, coughs at her desk.
You can see him now.
There's more than a slight air of the Muppet movie to this scene. The group gets up and nervously walks to the giant wooden doors.
Well, guys, this is it.
The door swings open to a flurry of choral music. Interior Lou Grade's office, Waldorf, New York, 1975 day. Jim, Bernie, Frank, Don, Richard, and Jerry shuffle across the posh-looking office. The back of a leather chair faces them. Smoking rises from behind.
Sir?
The chair revolves around. Sitting there is Lord Lou Grade, 69, a rounded man of great wealth. He sneers with a British pomp and panache, smoking a cigar and eyeing off these crazy New York artists. Jim gulps. Frank whispers into his ear.
We're all behind you, man.
Bravely, Jim steps up to the challenge.
Mr. Lou Grade, I'm Jim Henson, and this is my team.
I know who you are.
Oh, good, yeah.
I assume you've seen the idea.
I've seen all the things you've sent to my office, Mr. Brilstein. Yes. I am, I should add, a massive fan of your work, Mr. Henson. I've admired it from afar and for some time, even before this strange man over here came into contact with my secretary.
Well, thank you. Gee.
As for your proposal...
They all hold their breath as Lou Grade continues to suck back on his cigar.
I like it. About an ounce of American crafts. I'll need 24 half-hour episodes to start, and I'll need you to shoot in England.
The group doesn't know what to say. Jim, dumbstruck, just nods.
Okay.
Interior bar, Uptown, New York, 1975 day. The small, cramped booth is filled with Jim, Bernie, Don, Frank, Richard, and Jerry, all sharing a glass of whiskey, celebrating. It's like the old times back in the 60s. They toast their own success. Overjoyed, Jim does an impression of Lou Grade using a pretzel as a prop cigar.
I know who you are.
Richard, a little drunk, makes a high-pitched whine sound that mimics Jim. The group fall over themselves laughing. Interior bedroom, New Henson apartment, New York, 1975 night. Jim sits on the edge of the bed looking quite sorry for himself. Jane is crying across the other side of the room.
What about the kids, Jim? Their life is here, not in England.
We'll get a big house and have 2 homes.
It's not about the money. Things were finally settling, and you were always doing this. You're always driving a wedge into our life with your work.
I thought you believed in this.
A long pause. John calls out from his bedroom.
Mom!
Jane sighs, heading out the door.
When did what I think start mattering?
Interior, Elstree Studios, London, 1975 day. We see the opening to the Muppet Show. Kermit the Frog sticks his head out of the O on the giant Muppet Show place card.
It's the Muppet Show with our very special guest, Juliet Prowse. Yay!
Kermit goes ballistic. The title card raises into the air, revealing the old, rustic 40s-style vaudeville stage. A pair of red curtains part to reveal several gold arches. The female cast of the Muppet Show starts running on stage. Monsters and giant birds et al.
It's time to play the music. It's time to light the lights. It's time to meet the Muppets on the Muppet Show tonight.
The male cast of the Muppets, including even more colorful monsters and chickens, race onto the stage singing.
It's
Time
time
to put on makeup. It's time to dress up right. It's time to get things started.
Waldorf and Statler, 2 grumpy Muppets, whine from their balcony.
Oh, they'll never get this started. Boo!
Statler holds up the scorecard with a 1 on it. The Muppet audience boos them.
Oh, I know what you want.
He holds up another card, this time with a 0. The place erupts with applause. We pull back from Kermit, resting in his arch.
It's time to get things started.
To reveal the entire cast of the Muppets, all in a massive line.
On the most
sensational,
inspirational, celebrational, Muppetational.
This
is what we
call the Muppet Show.
The Muppet Show title is lowered again into the frame. Gonzo, a blue-beaked whatever Muppet, blows a trumpet from inside the O. It blows up in his face, ending the opening. Interior Muppet set, Elstree Studios, London, 1975 day. Filming on the Muppet Show. The set of Veterinarian's Hospital is laid out with a small camera crew huddled around watching a rehearsal. Dr. Bob, aka Rowlf the dog, is dressed in hospital gowns. He's performed by Jim Henson with the assistance of Jerry Jewell on the other arm. With him is Nurse Piggy, aka Miss Piggy, also dressed in hospital gowns. She's performed by Frank Oz. Standing with her is Nurse Janice, a squinty-eyed Cher ripoff with blonde hair, performed by Richard Hunt. The patient on the gurney is covered with a sheet. Dr. Bob rips the cover off, revealing a loaf of bread with eyes.
What? This is no patient. It's a loaf of bread.
And a very sick one.
Good grief! It's talking bread!
Dr. Bob, what do you make of it?
What else? Toast.
The crew crack themselves up. Jim hams up Rowlf's expression down the lens. Offset, Cheryl and Brian Henson laugh with the rest of the crew. They're hanging around the lights. We see underneath the raised set, Jim, Frank, Jerry, and Richard are cracking themselves up too. Interior cafeteria, Elstree Studio, London, 1975 day. Jim sits in the studio cafe, earpiece still in, listening to the ADs. He eats a quick lunch with Brian and Cheryl.
So what do you think of the show?
It's funny.
Yeah? Reckon your mom would laugh at it?
I don't know about that.
He looks across to the video split showing what's happening on set. Marvin Suggs, a blue Muppet with a Spanish flair, is banging small furry balls, Muppet phones, on the head with a large mallet. As he does, they scream out in pain, creating notes. And that in turn is being used to perform a song.
This is like the show I met your mom on years and years ago now, back in college. Maybe a little more, you know.
Frank Oz stands up from behind a table, holding the Marvin Muppet.
Well, it's like we let the inmates out of the nut house and gave them all puppets. I don't know why she doesn't come down here and be a part of it. She'd be so much happier. She used to love performing.
Cheryl smiles, not convinced for a second.
Oh my goodness.
Dad, she hates it. She says that all the time.
Really?
Interior restaurant, London, 1976 night. A posh, stifling, upmarket restaurant. Jim and Jane sit at a table. She finishes her dessert while Jim gulps down his third coffee.
You need to eat more. You still look gaunt.
I always look like that. I'm not worried about it.
Well, I am.
They've both run out of things to say.
The show's doing well. Time magazine was thinking of doing a cover. The editor said it's the best television show being produced on planet Earth, which is, you know, it's nice. You were right. Years ago, you know, with Sam and Friends. How much time did we lose when we should have been following our hearts all along? We knew what works. We always did.
Jane just looks at him, filled with sadness.
You were right, Jim. I was just watching you do it. I want to go back to New York with the kids. I don't fit in here.
But Jane.
It's not something we're going to fight about. There wouldn't be any point. We're not fighting people. Why don't we try friends for a while? See if that works out better than keeping up this game of husband and wife another night.
Now that we started the show, I can slow down.
Jane just stares him in the eyes.
Jim, you know that's not true. I got my first check in the mail for a silly little painting I did of an orange. I wasn't even trying to sell it. I just meant it for it to be framed. But somebody saw it at the shop, and of course I said yes. That was a big thing for me. I never made a cent before in my life, and yet here was this check out of nowhere. The kids and I, we celebrated with tea and cookies around the table, and it felt good, even if it wasn't the way I might have wanted something like that. With everyone around cheering me on. It wasn't a TV show, but to me it was something, you know? I called the studio just to tell you about it, but of course you were on set, and that was a moment of my life you missed, Jim.
Look, it's been a rough few weeks getting the show started. It's always like that. I don't know what
That wasn't this week, Jim. I got that check 6 years ago.
Jane pulls a check out of her wallet and shows Jim.
I have a cellar, and sometimes I make off with 2 or 3 paintings a month through this little store. And I can do all this from home, all without you ever having known somehow.
Honey, I could pay you 100 times what's on this signature if you just want to paint. If I'd known you needed some money, that's not a problem. Of course it's not. I want you to be happy.
That is my happiness, Jim, and you haven't been there to share it. I love you, but you don't belong to me. You belong to the people I'll never even meet.
Jim stares at the check, his heart heavy.
Let me make this right.
Then say we'll try friends, Jimmy. That's all I ever wanted.
Jim looks like he'll cry. Jane holds his head in her hands.
Maybe, maybe it just means we'll disappoint each other less.
How's that? How's that?
Don't make me be the one to say it. Say it.
Jim stares at the table. He's ripping apart with pain. Interior Muppet set, Elstree Studios, London, 1975, day. A kitchen set. The Muppet crew is hard at work filming. The Swedish chef, a crazy humanoid Muppet. He's being performed by Jim Henson with Frank Oz doing the spare arm.
Nerd gores de hort, de sure de fur, de bort, 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 bort.
The Swedish chef throws his utensils across the room. Behind the table, Frank is trying not to burst into laughter. Jim is taking the performance very seriously, hardly even cracking a smile.
Dirk is born, the Swedish meatball.
The Swedish chef sprinkles a little cheese on top, but when he goes to stir it, one of the meatballs springs out of the pan and bounces across the table.
Bort.
He tries it again, picking up a meatball. He bounces it across the table.
Oh, the Binchy Bunchy Burger, die. Schönes die Burger? Komm mit du.
The Swedish chef picks up a tennis racket and launches the meatballs off camera. Boing! He laughs and tries it again.
Or the who?
Sketch finishes and the crew burst out in the usual uncontrollable laughter. Jim and Frank appear from under the table. Jim's covered in sweat, panting.
You okay, Jim?
Yeah.
Bort, bort, bort.
Jim, overwhelmed, rushes away from the set. Interior, backstage, Elstree Studios, London, 1975, day. In the bowels of the Muppet Show set, Jim hobbles through the corridor, the Swedish chef Muppet still on his arm. He gently places it down on the table and leans against the wall, about to burst. He stares at the cover of Time magazine pinned to the staff notice board in front of him. It shows Jim Henson posing with the Muppets. Show of the century. Jim cries into his hands. Interior living room, Henson Farm, Ashoki, North Carolina, 1990, day. Years later, back at his parents' farm. Entertainment Tonight is playing on TV. Jim, wrapped in a blanket, is watching. On TV, Mary Hart grins down at the camera.
Once described as the creator of the most popular show on television, Jim Henson, mastermind behind the Muppets, suffered a new blow yesterday as his once untouchable dynasty continues its downward decline.
We cut to images from Ghost of Fafner Hall. A blue ghost puppet flies around the screen.
Jim Henson's new show, The Ghost of Fafner Hall, was given the axe by HBO late yesterday. The latest in a decade-long line of commercial disasters for the man once tipped to be the modern-day Walt Disney. Some even say Master Magician may have finally lost his touch.
The footage from the Storyteller series. We see the devils from the episode The Soldier in Death sitting around playing cards.
Recent failures include the critically praised but commercially disastrous Storyteller series, a passion project using puppets to retell classic, if lesser known, folktales, fables, and legends.
We see some footage from the 1986 feature film The Labyrinth. David Bowie as Jareth whirls a glass ball around the screen.
It's going to hurt to say this. The 1986 flop Labyrinth reported to have cost over $25 million to produce and winding up grossing less than $12 million of that back at the box office.
Cut to footage from the 1982 feature film The Dark Crystal. Various highlights from the film including the Skeksis, gaunt dragon-like creatures, the Mystics, elephantine lizard-like creatures, and the Gelflings, strange elves.
And the project that many attribute as the start of Henson's decline, The Dark Crystal, way back now in 1982, an unparalleled critical success for the Fantasy Master, but one audiences didn't seem to share.
We see footage of Jim and the Dark Crystal crew hard at work on set.
We're trying to break away from the Muppets. You know, there's many elements to the art of puppetry audiences have never been exposed to.
In fact, outside of repeats from The Muppet Show and Sesame Street, the greatest success for Henson in the last 10 years was the short-lived HBO show Fraggle Rock, my favorite.
We see some clips from Fraggle Rock, a Muppet-style show about underground Fraggles that live in harmony with all the other creatures.
And even this new Muppet offering had an element of darkness that you would never find down on Sesame Street.
We see an interview with Leonard Maltin interviewing Jim Henson on the Labyrinth press junket.
You seem worlds away from the vaudeville style of the Muppet Show with your new movie. I almost have to ask, is everything all right at home?
I just like trying new things, you know?
We see more clips from Fraggle Rock.
Even so, HBO canceled Fraggle Rock halfway through its 4th season in a very horrible decision, HBO.
Off TV, Betty Henson clicks off the TV set.
Jimmy, you shouldn't be watching that trash. It'll give you square eyes.
Jim gives her a smile.
I don't understand why they can't leave it alone.
People want to laugh. That's it. That's all there is to it.
Jim thinks about it a while. Betty gives him a gentle tap on the shoulder.
You start making them think, well, then people just want to laugh again. It's getting late. You and Cheryl ought to get a good night rest.
She heads out. Jim nods, lost in thought. Interior Local Motel, Ashoki, North Carolina, 1990 morning. The sun is trying to break through the curtains. A TV in the corner is playing a Muppet Show marathon, the sound down low. Cheryl Henson sits on the side of the bed, tying her shoes. She grins at the on-screen antics of Kermit and Miss Piggy. Jim Henson, gaunt and ill, is asleep in his cheap bed, wrapped up in blankets, shivering.
Dad, you want to get up? It's almost 11:30. We got to get back to Paul's for lunch.
Jim doesn't respond. Cheryl walks over and gently shakes him. He struggles to open his eyes.
Dad, it's time to get up.
I think I need to rest. I don't have it in me to handle your grandfather.
We're calling a doctor.
No, don't bother anyone with this. I'm tired is all. Just tired.
Cheryl thinks.
If I come back and catch you working on something, I'm going to kick your butt, okay?
Cheryl grabs her handbag.
I'll pick you up some chicken soup or something on the way home.
Sounds good.
Cheryl kisses him on the forehead and heads out.
I won't be late. I love you.
I love you too, honey.
A moment. Jim tries to go back to sleep. Suddenly, Kermit the Frog walks into the room. It's the Kermit we saw at the start of the film. Older, disheveled, his face covered in whiskers. He stares at Jim, concerned.
Jim, sorry to, disturb you. No, it's okay. I was just, dozing this, sun. I know. Very bright, isn't it? Sorry, Jim. I was worried about what's happening to us. What's happening to us?
Kermit doesn't know how to say it.
I think you should call your wife. I can't do that.
Kermit walks over and sits with Jim on the bed.
You know, it's strange. I almost know how you feel. My sweetheart is gone too. Wait, Piggy? I have. There's no other way to say it. I've never actually spoken those words aloud. Piggy married that creep Hogthrob last week. But she got married? And not to me. I thought we'd be together. Forever, you know? Maybe you still will. Too late now. I've lost the greatest love of my life. Obviously, she's not here. Is she?
They stare at each other, knowing. Understanding, Jim reaches across the hotel phone and dials a number.
I'm not even sure if this is still her number. Worth a shot, right?
The other end picks up. Jim listens.
Hello? Jane speaking. Hello?
A moment. Jim hangs up. He's not ready yet. Interior Airport, New York, 1990 night. Jim and Cheryl move their bags through the airport. Exhausted, looking more and more like death each second, Jim stops for a moment, resting to the side of the radiator near arrivals.
Oh, Daddy, are you okay?
Yeah, I'm just tired.
Jim's mind wanders. He looks out and sees Kermit drinking a shot at the airport bar. Kermit waves, noticing he's been seen. He mimes for Jim to call, using his froggy hands like a phone.
Hi-ho, Kermit the Frog here.
Cheryl watches him, stunned.
What, Daddy?
Huh?
What did you say?
Jim suddenly comes to. He smiles at his daughter.
Nothing.
Cheryl helps him get up.
You're seeing a doctor.
I'll call Phil tomorrow. He'll be at home. It's after 6.
I'll turn up the first thing in the morning and force you to go. You hear me? No more asking around this.
Gotta get to bed.
Interior Jim Henson's New York home, 1990 night. Cheryl helps Jim into his posh apartment, overlooking Central Park. He flops down on the lounge.
You want something to eat or drink?
Something cold, maybe.
I'll check in the fridge.
Cheryl walks into the kitchen. Jim thinks. He picks up the telephone and dials again.
Hello?
Jim can't talk.
Jim.
Hearing his name, Jim hangs up. He lies down on the couch, resting his head. Interior bedroom, Jim Henson's New York home, 1990 night. Jim is laying in bed. He looks terrible. The apartment is deathly quiet. Even the fridge hum has made its way into his bedroom. Kermit the Frog walks in again. He carries a box of chocolates that he keeps snacking on. Kermit plonks down on the end of the bed, offering a few of his bonbons to Jim.
You don't go away, do you? I can't, Jim. That wouldn't be possible, if you think about it. I'm so depressed. I feel so sick and so run down. Maybe you're not like, maybe you're not like you think, Maybe you're getting worse. You're not helping. Well, we've got to consider it, Jimbo. You're a smart guy. What's left at the end, What's left at the end of the rainbow? We're just gonna go out alone? How'd that happen? I'm not alone. Well, no offense, but you're talking to a piece of cloth.
Jim thinks.
Couldn't imagine a world where you and the pig didn't end up together. Yeah. Neither could I. But I guess it happened, It's never too late. She deserves to be happy. She deserves that.
They stare at each other. Kermit pops another chocolate.
So, we gonna chew the fat all night? Or are you gonna pick up the phone? Because my bonbons are just about finished.
Jim thinks. He reaches for the phone again. Suddenly a loud knocking is heard from outside. Light fills the room. Cut to. Jim wakes in his bed. It's in the middle of the afternoon. He's been sleeping for hours, maybe days. There's a loud knocking from the door. Interior Jim Henson's New York home, 1990 afternoon. Jim, wrapped in a sheet, opens the front door. Standing there is Jane Henson, 58, older than we've ever seen her before, but still unmistakably Jane. They stare at each other, unsure who should speak first.
Hi, Jim.
I was dreaming that I'd called you.
Cheryl told me you missed a recording. I came straight over.
Interior living room, Jim Henson's New York home, 1990 afternoon. Jim and Jane sit on the couch. It's extremely awkward between the two. Jane stares at some familiar-looking paintings of oranges on the wall.
I thought maybe you might have moved out of this place by now.
Oh, eternal creature of habit.
I tried to get a place around the park long ago, but the broker said I might be waiting years.
You should have told me.
Oh, no, Jim. No, I was fine.
Jim coughs. Jane watches, worried, but unsure how much she should comfort him.
You want some water?
No, I'm okay.
Jim relaxes. A long pause. Jane reaches under her cushion for something that's annoying her.
There's something sticking into my back.
She pulls the head of a broom out. They both look at it.
Oh, I've been looking for that.
Jane bursts out laughing.
Jim, how? How did you lose a part of a broom down the lounge?
I was building something. I think. Can't remember.
She keeps laughing. Interior kitchen, Jim Henson's New York home, 1990 night. Jim and Jane sit in the kitchen table sharing a cup of tea. They're getting more comfortable by the minute. He still doesn't look well, but there's a sudden burst of color to Jim's skin.
How's the canvas stuff?
Oh, good some years, not so good others. It is what it is, I guess.
I've seen ads for your exhibit in the paper a few times. I cut them out and give it to the kids.
Jim points to the fridge. He's cut out all the newspaper ads from Jane's art shows over the last few years. All of them oranges, similar to the ones on TV.
Brian helped design them, you big dope. They were all there.
Oh.
Jane slides her hand across the table, a little nervous. It seems to take an eternity for them to hold hands.
I'm gonna have to get going soon. It's getting late.
Jane, will you stay a bit longer?
Why?
I want you here.
They stare at each other. Interior balcony, Jim Henson's New York home, 1990 night. Central Park twinkles with fairy lights down below in the Sherry Netherlands Hotel in New York. Jim, wrapped in a blanket, holds Jane in his arms. They stare out at the stars together, their clenched hands never wanting to let go. They've been here for hours. Jim suddenly starts coughing. Jane opens her eyes concerned. She lifts her head from his chest. He can't stop. Jim gently moves Jane's arms away and heads to the bathroom. Jane looks down at her hand. There's spots of blood on them. Interior bathroom, Jim Henson's New York home, 1990 night. Jim is leaning over the toilet bowl, coughing, spattering blood. Just spatterings of blood spew out. Jane watches in the archway, mortified.
Jim, can we go to the hospital? Can we call a nurse, a doctor, somebody?
It's okay. It's okay. It's not going to happen again. I've been pushing too hard when I cough. Maybe just try rubbing my back, calm my breathing down a little.
Worried, she finds herself sucked into this delusion. Interior living room, Jim Henson's New York home, 1990 night. Jim is lying in the lounge with the back of his shirt up. Jane rubs his back gently, trying to ease the pain.
Is it working?
Yeah, I think so.
You want me to get some ointment or something?
No, just keep doing that.
Jim, I think we should go to the hospital.
I want to be here. I'm okay.
Jane keeps rubbing his back, hoping for the best. Interior bedroom, Jim Henson's New York home, 1990 night. Jim is shaking on the edge of his bed. His handkerchief is full of blood. Jane stares at him, now reduced to tears.
God, I'm dying.
He coughs again into his bloodied rag.
Jim, we've given it a few hours, please.
Jim thinks, as if examining his body with his mind.
Okay. I should go to the hospital. I'm breathing too hard and my heart is racing.
Jesus.
Don't panic. Don't panic. It's okay. It's okay.
Interior taxi, New York, 1990 night. Jim leans against the window of the taxi. He looks horrible. Jane holds his hands, terrified. They race to the streets of New York.
Jim, you still there?
I'm fine. Honestly.
Exterior outside New York Hospital, New York, 1990 night. The taxi pulls up outside the outpatient's entrance. Jane helps Jim out. She looks up at the sign.
This is outpatients. We're in the wrong place.
Jane knocks on the cab window.
You've dropped us at the wrong entrance.
What?
This is outpatients.
Get in. I'll drive you around the block.
Jim pulls Jane away from the cab.
That's a quarter block. We'll walk.
Jim, he said he'd drive us.
Don't bother this man. Come on. Let me walk with you.
She's not sure what to do.
We're okay. Thank you.
Jane waves the taxi off. She grabs Jim's arm and helps him as they stumble across the block. Jim smiles at her. Her touch clearly means the world. Interior admissions, New York Hospital, 1990 night. Jane helps Jim through the emergency doors. The staff see the situation straight away.
Please, we need a doctor.
Two nurses race over to help as Jim collapses into a heap. Bang! Jim is pushed to the hospital corridors on a gurney. He's having trouble gasping for air. A doctor throws an oxygen pump over his mouth. Interior X-ray, New York Hospital, 1990 night. Jim, gasping, is carefully being placed in a giant X-ray machine. It clunks and clangs as lights bounce off his body. Things aren't looking that great. Interior private room, New York Hospital, 1990 night. Jim lies in a hospital bed, an oxygen mask over his face. Jane waits with him. A doctor walks in with several X-rays. They look at him for answers.
Mr. Henson, we've got the first of your X-rays back. I've taken a look. You can see we've picked up several pockets of infection around your lungs. Here and here.
We see on the X-rays a large cloud covering Jim's ribcage.
It's a concern, a real concern. We'll send you in for another scan in a couple of minutes to see how it's progressing, but my first thoughts are we're dealing with a form of pneumonia or perhaps a group A streptococcal infection. It's quite abnormally advanced. Can I ask how long you've had trouble breathing?
He was coughing blood maybe 2 or 3 hours ago, but he's been feeling off the last week or 2 weeks, I think. Is that right, Jim?
Jim, pained, nods.
Is he going to be okay?
We need to get antibiotics into his body straight away. There's a real risk of toxic shock with the amount of time that might have elapsed here. I'll be right back.
The doctor rushes out of the room. Jim looks to Jane.
Jim, Jesus. Why did I let you wait, for crying out loud? So stupid. I was so stupid.
Jim holds her hand. He gently pushes his oxygen mask down from his face.
Jane.
Jimmy, don't talk. You need to rest.
I want you to know I love you.
Jane looks at him. Her eyes well up with tears. She holds him.
Jim, I love you too.
He whispers into her ear.
Don't leave me again. Don't leave me again. Don't leave me again.
I won't. I won't.
Nothing without you. All of it. Nothing.
They hold each other tightly. Kermit walks into the room, his head hanging low. He starts singing I'm Going Back There Someday from the Muppet movie.
This looks familiar. vaguely familiar, almost unreal, yet it's too close to feel yet, close to my soul, and yet so far. I'm going to go back there someday.
Jim starts to shake. Jane screams. Luckily, we can't hear her pain. It's muted. All we're left with is the song. It builds into a convulsion. She runs out to find the doctors. Kermit walks closer to Jim, ready to say goodbye.
Sun rises, night falls. Sometimes the sky calls. Is that a song there? And do I belong there?
Interior Hospital Ward, New York Hospital, 1990 night. Jane runs around rounding up nurses. They race back into Jim's room and hold him down, trying to get the situation under control.
I've never been there, but I know the way. I'm going to go back there someday.
Interior payphone outside New York Hospital, 1990 dawn. The sun is starting to rise. Jane, trembling, puts some money into the payphone.
Honey, the doctors told me your father might not make it through the night. You need to come here.
Jane loses herself again, collapsing into the payphone.
You can't go with me. It's not one to share. I know I'll be completely at home in midair.
Interior outside private room, New York Hospital, 1990 morning. Jane waits with Brian, Cheryl, Lisa, John, and Heather in the waiting room. Doctors come and go from Jim's room. Kermit watches, his head hanging low by the water cooler.
I'm flying, not walking, on featherless wings. We can hold on to love like invisible strings.
The doctor walks out, quite distraught. He bends down very casually to the Henson family and takes Jane's hand. She knows already.
No. No.
She collapses into Brian's arms. Kermit walks towards Jim's room. He sneaks inside. Interior private room, New York Hospital, 1990 morning. Kermit sees Jim on the hospital bed. He's covered with tubes and monitors. He died only a moment ago.
There's not a word yet for old friends who've just met. Part heaven, part space, or have I found my place? You can just visit, but I plan to stay. I'm going to go back there someday.
Kermit looks outside. Half of the Henson company is turned up to see Jim. Up front are Frank, Jerry, and Dawn. They hold on to Jane and Jim's children, weeping at hearing the news. It's incredible. Kermit watches. The line of visitors snakes all the way down the corridor.
I'm going to go back there someday.
Interior Jim Henson's Memorial, New York, 1990 day. Some days have passed. A giant public memorial is being held at the Cathedral of St. John the Divine. The room is filled with thousands of children and members of the public, each holding up a little puppet butterfly. Interspersed among them are Muppet characters, sitting among the kids, holding them tightly. A jazz band sits on the stage. A giant projection shows Jim Henson with his arm around Kermit the Frog. A spotlight shines onto the podium where Brian Henson is bravely talking to the mourning crowd.
My father worried his kids would not get to his bedside in time. He wrote a letter for us, and I would like to share with all of you today.
Brian pulls at a small handwritten letter. He looks down into the audience at Jane, Cheryl, Lisa, John, and Heather, all holding each other up front.
Life is meant to be fun and joyous and fulfilling. May each of yours be that. Having each of you as a child of mine has certainly been one of the good things in my life. Know that I've always loved each of you with an eternal, bottomless love, a love that has nothing to do with each other, for I feel my love for each of you is total and all encompassing. Please watch out for each other and love and forgive everybody. It's a good life. Enjoy it.
Brian looks out at the audience, fighting back tears. It's not just human eyes staring at him. It's also hundreds of Muppets.
It's a good life. Enjoy it.
Brian puts the letter away and slowly walks off stage. We see a group of Jim's friends walking on with something hidden behind their backs. It's Frank Oz, Richard Hunt, David Goles, Steve Whitmore, Jerry Nelson, and Kevin Clash. A lone piano across the other side of the stage begins to play. The group starts singing Babyface Chickens.
Bark, bark, bark. Bark, 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 bark.
The place erupts into laughter. The kids wave their butterfly puppets in the air. Even Big Bird, walking along the aisle, does a chicken dance and try to lighten the mood. After a moment, the song changes into something a little slower. Richard Hunt walks to the microphone. He pulls Scooter, the spectacled yellow manager of the Muppet Show, out from behind his back. Scooter begins to sing to the crowd. Just one person.
Just one person believes in you, deep enough and strong enough, believes in you, hard enough and long enough. Before you knew it, someone else would think, if he can do it, I can do it, making it.
Suddenly, Jerry Nelson turns around holding the Gobo Fraggle Muppet. Both he and Scooter start singing into the microphone.
To whole people,
believe in you. Deep enough and strong enough, believe in you. Hard enough and long enough, there's bound to be some other person who believes in making it a threesome.
Steve Whitmore turns around holding Wembley Fraggle. He joins in with the others.
Three.
People you can say, believe in me. And if three whole people.
Suddenly, Kevin Clash turns around holding Elmo. Now he joins in with the song.
Why not four? And if four whole people.
Suddenly, Frank Oz turns around holding Fozzie Bear, and David Goles turns around with Gonzo. They all join in together.
Why not more? And more. And more.
Suddenly, the entire Henson company walks on stage holding his creations. The hall fills with singing Muppets, all standing underneath a photo of Jim Henson.
And when all those people believe in you, deep enough and strong enough, believe in you, hard enough and long enough.
Jane turns around to see. The entire room is clapping and singing along. She wipes her eyes.
It stands to reason that you yourself will start to see what everybody sees in you.
The Muppets all turn and look up at the photo of Jim.
And maybe even you can believe in you too.
Jane turns to the image of Jim as applause fills the room. Interior decrepit hotel room, New York day. We see Kermit, covered in growth, still eating at the end of his bed, eating chocolates. Sitting at the end of his bed, eating chocolates. Long pause. He looks up to the camera.
Well, darn it. You didn't think we'd end like that, did you?
Exterior street, New York day. Kermit walks out of his building into the cow-covered street. He thinks, before running, fast as he can, keeps running past buildings, into tunnels, past trees and parks, as fast as he can go. Exterior Hog Mansion, New York evening. Kermit finds himself in a hog-inspired suburbia. He walks up a driveway, possessed. He rings the doorbell. Miss Piggy answers. The two of them stare at each other for a long, long time.
Yes?
Piggy,
Uh-huh.
I wish
You wish?
you knew
Know what?
that, you knew.
Out with it already, frog!
I wish you knew how much I loved you.
Miss Piggy is floored. She thinks for a moment.
You do?
Very,
Do you?
Very much.
Wait just a moment.
Miss Piggy turns and walks inside the house. Interior inside Hog Mansion, New York day. Miss Piggy barges into the living room. Link Hogthrob, a giant beer gut on him now, is watching a ball game.
Link, I don't love you anymore. I'm sorry.
Maybe I can't hear you over the TV.
I said I'm leaving you.
Piggy, come on. This is the playoffs.
Frustrated, Miss Piggy karate chops the television in half. Exterior Hog Mansion, New York evening. Kermit waits on the lawn. He is suddenly taken by surprise as Miss Piggy races out the front door and takes him in his arms. Her arms.
You're a stupid frog.
Yep.
What took you so long?
I don't know. There was this and there was that.
Miss Piggy holds her hand up to his mouth.
Don't ruin this with your jabbering.
Kermit, shocked, just dissolves in the moment. They kiss. He turns to the camera, a giant rainbow falling out of the sky. Way off in the distance, Finale, the magic store, begins to play.
Why are there so many songs about rainbows?
That's part of what rainbows do.
Interior Miss Piggy's car, New York day. Kermit drives with Miss Piggy, Fozzie, and Gonzo, all crowded in the back. They head towards the rainbow.
Rainbows are memories, sweet dream reminders.
What is it you'd like to do?
Exterior outside church, New York day. We're back at the church from the beginning. There's a giant congregation of Muppets again, watching as Kermit, Miss Piggy, Fozzie, and Gonzo all pull up in their car.
All of us watching,
and wishing we'd find it.
I've noticed you're watching too.
Exterior outside church, New York day. Kermit lifts a veil on Miss Piggy at the front of the altar. They kiss. The congregation smiles and sings.
Someday
you'll find it. The rainbow connection.
Kermit and Miss Piggy join in.
The
lovers,
the
dreamers, and you.
Suddenly, Animal, the crazy, unhinged Muppet, part lion, part bear, gets overwhelmed. He rushes the walls, eating straight through them. The Muppets scream and rush away. Chaos erupts. Chickens fly everywhere.
Wait, everybody, don't panic!
It's too late. The entire church is coming down. The walls fall, crashing to the ground. We suddenly see that the Muppets weren't in a church at all, but rather all on a giant soundstage. An explosion goes off in the ceiling, creating a hole. The rainbow gently falls down through the gap, straight onto Kermit's face. The insanity stops as all the Muppets bunch together to watch this amazing sight.
Life's like a movie, write your own ending.
The Muppets join in.
Keep believing, keep pretending. We've done just
what we've set out to do.
They all watch as a steel door creeps open. They see a humanoid Muppet plodding in. It's Jim Henson in Muppet form, smiling at them all.
Thanks
Thanks to
the
the
lovers,
The
the
dreamers,
and you.
A red velvet curtain closes across the screen. Interior balcony Muppet Show day. We see Waldorf and Statler in their familiar balcony. They yawn.
Well, that wasn't half bad.
No, it was all bad.
They both roll over laughing. Cut to black. The end.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. We'll see
Oh my
you at the
God.
next one.